Good evening. Welcome to the school committee meeting of January 12th. Welcome back to the community members and Happy New Year to everyone here. We do have a full audience tonight as we have a very full agenda. Tonight our agenda will include the Accelerated Improvement Plan, district action of pedunculosis, which is head lice. We'll have discussion on that one. Then we will spend some time reviewing the OXPS community parent responses. We'll hear from our superintendent and with his goals, our draft goals, and a discussion of our FY 2015 operating budget. As I call the meeting to order, tonight we have two representatives. The first representative will be from the Oxford Middle School. We'll hear a report of the great things going on there from Joey Sala. Joey, come on up, please.
Joe, he prefers Joe.
Joe, I'm sorry, Joe. Yeah, you can have a seat right there. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you. These are the Oxford Middle School general happenings. 8th grader Kayla Davis will be representing Oxford Middle School as our Project 351 ambassador. Project 351 celebrates the power of young people as a force for positive change in their communities and our Commonwealth. Through service, leadership, development, enrichment, and friendship with statewide peers, ambassadors build skills and confidence, explore issues, embrace leadership, and motivate a lifetime of service. Kayla will be spending January 17th in Boston working to develop her service project, Cradles to Crayons, to bring back to Oxford. These are the student council updates. Student council is getting geared up for the second half of the year. Upcoming, we have a Valentine's Day candygram sale, a Valentine's Day dance, and Spirit Week in March. Stay tuned for more updates to come on all these events and more. These are the National Junior Honor Society updates. NJHS has no new updates at this time. Students are working hard on being successful contributors and leaders in the classroom and community. 7th and 8th graders that have met the NJHS criteria will be notified after second quarter grades are finalized. These are the other miscellaneous updates as of January 9th. Our ski club has started for the season. 23 students from OMS and 10 from OHS are participating in this fun program. They leave at 2:30 and head up to Wachusett, returning to the high school at approximately 8:15. We are in the middle of map testing for the second time this year. We will do it again at the end of May and the beginning of June. Report cards will go home with the students on January 30th. Our boys basketball team is off to a great start with a 4-1 record, and the girls team is 2-3 and have been playing very hard. We had a Wear Your Patriots gear to school day on Friday the 9th, and we'll have another one on Friday the 16th to support the New England Patriots. The students and staff participating. Go Patriots! The following students were Students of the Month of December. Grade 5 was Cameron Michalak, Jonathan Rockford, William Owusu, Emma Goyette, Alana Peretta, Ashley Vadenbrock. Grade 6 was Kelly Generico, Adam Clark, Samuel Kahn, Darrell Ramos, William Terrell, and Trevor Johnson. Grade 7 was Connor Higgins, Olivia Cormier, Kaylee Elwood, Susanna Lambert, Braden Donnie, and Daniel Refuse. Grade 8 was Angela Carr, Taylor LeBluff, Nicholas Gagne, Alexandria Holmes, Shay Parker, and Jason Dufresne. That's all.
Thank you, Joe. Oh, just before you leave, again, your wonderful job, and thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Joe, can you just tell us who some of your teachers are in the classes you take at the middle school?
Yes. Ms. King is my ELA and geography teacher. Ms. Prunier is my math and science teacher. Ms. Duca is my literacy teacher. I take math assessments and STEM. And then I have gym with Mrs. Carino and Mr. Hersey.
And not to put you on the spot, but what's your favorite class?
Probably science or math.
some math, right?
Yeah.
Duly noted, his math teacher is in the back of the room.
I love math.
Very good, thank you, Joe, wonderful job. And let's hear the great things happening at Oxford Middle School. Good luck the rest of the year.
Well done, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll go to the high school. Tyler.
A couple of quick updates from the NJROTC unit. Just recently, they donated $3,300 worth to the Oxford Food Shelf, and there's an article coming up that will be in the Webster Times, I believe, in this week's edition about that. Their final Drill League meet is coming up at the end of this month. They would love to have support. And the final thing from them is they have solidified their date for the military ball, and the invitations will be sent out shortly, so you should all be receiving them. Moving on to the rest of the high school, the AP mock English exam was just taken last Saturday. I believe it was 38 students that participated, and everybody seems to have gained from that experience. The Oxford High Student Council is sponsoring a Super Bowl, that is soup like Campbell's Chunky Soup, food drive in the main office. It is predicting the outcome of each week's game. So this week we'll have 2 boxes, one for the Patriots and one for the Colts, and people from the town and students in the school are welcome to bring in food and put it in the box that they think will win. We're hoping that will bring in a lot of food. There are basketball games for both boys and girls scheduled all throughout the month. Their schedules are available online at oxps.org. Crowds are always fun, so please come watch a game. Final thing is SATs and ACTs are coming up. They're January 24th for the SATs and February 7th, I believe, for the ACTs. So we're wishing good luck to those students participating in those. And as Joe said, report cards are coming soon, so everybody is looking forward to those.
Thank you, Tyler. Okay. Our next order of business, we have approval of minutes from December the 8th. Those were in our packet. Well, hopefully all members had a chance to review them, and the 3 of us were also in attendance that evening. So at this point, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes of December the 8th, 2014.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Any corrections, additions, deletions? Not all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Let the record show 3 in the affirmative, 2 absent, and those minutes are approved. As we jump down the agenda, we go into the Accelerated Improvement Plan, the AIP, with some updates. And in our packets that we did have a very informative presentation and data for us to look at. So I'll turn the floor over to Dr. Garceau, and I believe he has some assistance on this one as well.
Thank you, Chairman Kuhn, and ladies, if you wanted to join us up here at the table. For the committee and for the community, I thought it was important to bring us up to date on the Accelerated Improvement Plan. And for those who aren't aware of what the plan is or what its genesis was, a little background. As a Level 3 district, we are entitled to support through the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education through what's called DSAC, and that stands for the District School and School Assistance Centers. And they are regional teams of educators and policy experts and folks from DESE who come out and work with districts to develop plans for turning around what might otherwise be less than successful programs. So apparently, well, not apparently, in the school year of 2012-2013, DSAC was out here in district, and they still continue to come out and provide support. And they worked with my predecessor and the administrative team and teachers and members of the community to develop priorities for improvement and built plans around those. And as that plan is coming to a close at the end of this school year, I thought it was important to both update the committee and the community, but also as a new superintendent coming in, I had to learn what work has been going on and how much had been accomplished and where we are, so that it can inform our decisions about what we do next. So The way the plan is structured is that it starts with a problem statement, and DSAC came in and met with the community and again reviewed MCAS data and school report card data and survey data and developed a problem statement that read as follows. Analysis of available MCAS data indicates that historically our students, including students with disabilities, low income, and English language learners, failed to meet grade level proficiencies. Our students consistently underperform compared to their grade level peers across the state. If that were not the case, we wouldn't be in the situation where we're a level 3 district, and it was for that reason, it was around that problem statement, I should say, that DSAC worked with the administration to develop these 3 objectives. They like to structure things in terms of 3 objectives to close that gap between where we need to be and what the problem statement just illustrated. And then within each of the objectives, there might be 3 initiatives that are going to help achieve that. So the first objective was to cultivate a shared responsibility for the academic, social, and emotional achievement of all of Oxford students. And as I'm talking through this report, I think and as we talk through the survey results, and as we have talked about our 3 priorities district-wide, there's a recognition that we have to build this shared responsibility for the academic, social, and emotional success of all students, and all, by no coincidence, is bolded here. And I will often use the same language. So in order to support that first initiative, things that are listed in there, that first objective, I should say, the initiatives are to continue the development of cohesive curriculum maps, and we can talk about that in a bit. And second, to increase family engagement and community support. If we're going to build shared commitment to the success of all students, we need to engage our parents as partners in doing that. And third is to develop organizational and resource charts to ensure the proper approach and/or program is being used to meet the needs of each student. And then, so for each of those initiatives, below each, there are 3 activities to support the attaining of those initiatives, which ultimately will lead us to meeting that first objective. So to transition from that, before we go into the other objectives, what you also have in your packets is the AIP status report. And Ms. Daly and Director Susan have worked to provide updates as to where we are based on the timelines and the plans that I just described for Objective 1. And to the right, to the far right, where it says comments, you'll see a narrative kind of description of where we are in terms of achieving that. So if the first one, again, is around, the first objective is creating this shared responsibility for the academic, social, and emotional achievement and success of all students. And the first initiative under that objective is to continue the development of a cohesive curriculum map for all grades and subject areas. What follows is the action step of completing and implementing the ELA and math curriculum maps pre-K through 12. Continue work on the curriculum maps for social studies and science, and develop and implement quarterly common assessments. So, Ms. Daly, if you wouldn't mind, whether you were to read from the comments on the right side, or just to update the committee and the community generally, where we are in terms of progress towards meeting those 3 activities, or completing those 3 activities, that would be appreciated.
Okay, I'll start with the ELA and math curriculum maps, because those are the ones that we started earliest in the process. They are nearing completion in all grade levels. This year, with the purchase and implementation of the new Reading Wonders program, we kind of had to start from scratch with that program, and that is a fluid document that's being created as we speak, as the teachers work through the units in that program. Math, this is our second year with our K-6 Envision program. Those are very close to completion. There are some percentages there. Grade 7 and 8 are 85% complete. Grade 10 and 11 are approximately 77% complete. Mapping for more specialized math courses that one teacher may teach several different courses. those are a little further behind. We have one person doing the work for 3 or 4 courses, is a Herculean task. And those are a work in progress that we're hoping will be complete by June of 2015. The second initiative there would be to continue the work on curriculum maps for social studies and science. Again, those are continuing. Social studies is closer to completion due to science, hoping to adopt, Massachusetts is hoping to adopt the new science standards by 2017. So, yes, we are implementing those standards now. Some of those standards is kind of a combination. We have not purchased any new materials. We're hoping to do that after the standards are adopted and give book companies time to actually produce a document, produce materials that will support those standards. Yes, we have a map. Is it complete? Is it aligned to the new standards? No. And it won't be until they're really adopted, fully adopted. I think did I cover mine? Oh, common assessments was the third initiative there. Develop and implement quarterly common assessments in K to 6. We have, the program has created very suitable common assessments, and we are using those in both Wonders and Envision. Grades 7 through 12 have created them, are implementing them, and are updating them as they go along. Will we have a complete set by the end of this school year? Yes. Some will need tweaking, some will need updating, some will need refining. But in education, that happens pretty regularly. So, yes, we're starting to look at the data that is produced in those assessments, starting to spend some time wondering, with teachers working together, determining what's working in one classroom needs to be carried into another to get the same results.
Thank you, Ms. Daly. So
Sure.
what I probably should have said at the outset is just for clarification's sake, when we talk about maps and we talk about curriculum mapping, they really are they're like roadmaps that get us from the beginning of the year to the content and skills that all kids need to have in place by the end of the year. So they're not lesson plans, they're not any more prescriptive to teachers than saying, here are the things that need to be covered during this window of time, and then this comes next, and then this comes next. But a lot of the work of how that content and content is delivered and those skills developed is still at the discretion of the teachers. It's just that ensuring that if the standards say, and the district says that at the end of grade, for example, 4, all students need to know and be able to do these things in mathematics, the map kind of lays out how we're going to get there and ensure that they get there. So it's important to have those documents in place. It's frankly one of the things that when the state was out here in 2013, they cited the district on not having those curriculum documents in place. They cited us on the fact that we didn't have a curriculum director. We now have both. And the maps are, as Ms. Daly mentioned, fluid documents. They need to be revised from time to time to reflect changes in standards, the changes in expectations, and that's where we are with that. If it pleases the committee, if you have any questions for Ms. Daly on this portion of the report?
Yeah,
Can I add one more thing before?
Sure, go ahead.
I guess another piece that you would need to know, too, is that teachers are working together to create their documents, and many of them sharing, which is phenomenal. The other piece is we're trying to be on the same page, teaching approximately the same thing across the quarter, so that when the quarterly assessment is given at the end of the quarter, one of the common assessments, we're able to test all of those standards and determine the outcome of children at that time. I don't know if I was clear prior to that.
Sure. I have a question on the same topic you just brought up, on the physical process. So each teacher writes their own, or is there a group that gets together? Do they meet regularly? Could you just describe the physical, and it takes time, and we'll notice that, and the key word is off target. And I'm hearing off target because of new curriculum and waiting for the adoption of the science standards.
That's correct.
So that's why we're not off target, that's why we're not there, but what are we doing to ensure that we're going to get there? And describe the physical process,
Sure.
please.
We've worked for the last few years, we've had grant money to support our program of curriculum mapping, where teachers would collaborate. So we have a 7th grade math curriculum, and we have a 6th grade math curriculum map, so that all 6th graders, 6th grade teachers have created that map together, have access to that, have spelled that out. There's a calendar of approximately when they teach each of the standards and each of the skills throughout the year. So they have worked collaboratively. They've had numerous opportunities to do that. We continue that now through professional development days, after-school department meetings, and those periods of time when we have that, because we don't have the funding to support teachers working outside of their school day now.
Okay, and to you and Dr. Garceau, is there ample time to get these done in a timely fashion in the process that you have now? Or is there another means that would have to be then to get these? Because when I'm reading how the importance of this document to be a fluid document, and we get a little behind with new curriculum, is there any other supports that you would need to, I guess, expedite the process?
After-school sessions had worked very well when we could pay teachers to work after school. Unfortunately, we don't have that funding now, so we have to do that during the teacher's regular workday.
Other vehicles where this work can take place, though, is during common planning time.
Right.
As we redesign the schedules, we're trying to ensure that we build in professional collaborative time during the school day so that the teachers can do work just like this, really examining the standards, recognizing where kids need to be at different places, and what instructionally is happening amongst the teachers to get there. So it can happen during common planning time, as Ms. Daly referenced. We also have a number of half-day professional days throughout the course of the school year. Some of that work can happen then. We also have an additional full professional development day coming up on March 13th. So we have to get very creative about the time we have. Time is a very, very valuable resource. But, we've been assured that the ELA and mathematics at least will be completed by the end of the school year. We are still waiting, as Joanne mentioned, on the adoption of the new, the next-gen science standards. So while we're not going to completely wait, we want to make sure that our instruction is aligned to what needs to happen now. There's going to have to be some revision and some tweaking there, but we should be on course. It's just, again, time is a very valuable commodity, and we're trying to get as creative about creating those opportunities for teachers to collaborate as we can.
Great, thank you. Mrs. Griffin?
I know that the state has come out with model curriculum units for the science standards. And I think that a lot of things have been almost settled, even though it says 2017. So I think
Correct.
a lot of that work can be underway. I know the science departments in the district that I teach are actually right now for 6th, 7th, and 8th realigning their particular vision, and that work is underway in our district.
It is underway here, we just don't want to finalize anything
Right.
until we know for sure.
But I would assume that appropriate shifts would be made for planning for next year for courses, and even though things are not firm in place, those difficult conversations have to start to take shape so the courses are ready to go when the standards are fully adopted.
Right.
I would love to see the Atlas reports run and given to the committee so we can see the work that really has taken shape so far, just so we can see the progress.
Certainly.
Another question that I have is, when I was going through, I saw that there was no mention to 6th grade in the report for progress for math.
6th grade math is done, is complete.
Okay. So that wasn't listed in the comments. It was talked about grades, let's see, 7th and 8th, 10th and 11th, but I did not see 6th grade.
6 is complete.
Okay, called out into that, so that, you might want to update that in the report. I'd love to see the common assessments. I'd love to see student work samples. I want to know, are these book prescribed common assessments that, or are they teacher-made?
Combination of the two.
Combination of the both. And in regards to, getting our kids prepared for math, especially with the mathematical practice standards, I want to see how much writing they're doing. If it's, multiple choice tests, or are we really preparing the kids to
They're writing
They're
as well,
writing.
as well,
Okay.
yes.
And is it performance tasks embedded in there?
There
With
are,
their assessments?
yes.
So I'd love to kind of see some of that. That sounds excellent. I have some other questions. And I don't know if you're going to speak to the next points coming up in the report in regards to co-teaching models and whatnot.
That'll be nice.
We certainly will.
I assume we are.
Yeah,
So maybe I'm jumping
let's
the gun.
go on to, yeah, we're going to
I think
keep it
I'm
one time.
jumping the gun. All right.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you for the update. I understand that this is a hefty task that we're undertaking, and I don't really know how to follow Mrs. Griffin's comments, but she's a professional in this field. But I will say, what I'd like to see us do is understand a little bit why these targets weren't met. So part of my work in my day job is project management and taking a look at what can we learn from in this project after the fact. So it's concerning to me that some of this, isn't complete yet, but I think that we've made great strides. And Mrs. Griffin made a point that I'd just like to echo, in that with the science, and I think you've said that we're not waiting, there's a framework in place. I anticipate that even though the standards aren't finalized, that there's a good portion of it that's probably not going to change at this point, and we could begin to have that work done. Dr. Garceau, do we anticipate when the DSAC or DESE or all the alphabet soup, do we anticipate when they'll be coming back to evaluate this plan? Do they come back to evaluate this plan?
They leave evaluation to us. They help draft the plan. They provide ongoing support and recommendations. They were in district just last week for another matter. So they're a resource to us, but they are not prescriptive to the level that they are in a level 4 district. In a level 4 district, they write the plan and they hold you very, very much accountable. They're more available to us as a resource. So again, my intent tonight was to update the committee on what has happened over the last few years prior to my coming on board, what our plans are for completing as much of this plan as is possible by June of this year, because we need to start drafting the next iteration of this plan throughout the spring.
I guess the final comment that I have, and this could perhaps be something in a debriefing session when we talk about this, but you mentioned that there was funding for us to pay teachers to do this after hours. Was there money left on the table that went unspent because we didn't complete the work in the time frame allotted?
No, the work that was done on curriculum maps were sessions that were set up either during the summer and after school. And if teachers came to work, they were paid the stipend. That's a contractual hourly rate after school. It's always hard to determine how many people are going to come. Sometimes people sign up and, life happens and they're unable to come. So I don't think there was too much left on the table at the end of Race to the Top. That grant expired.
Okay. That was my question, is it sounded as though the funds were coming from a source outside of the district's normal funding. So it
Yes.
was Race to the Top funds.
Yes.
I just, part of our responsibility as elected officials is to make sure that we're good stewards of the finances as well. And
Exactly.
if there was money left on the table, understanding that that was a prior administration, but I think it would be helpful for us to know, and part of our process of making sure that the school's financial position is as transparent to the community as possible. So that was the reason for my asking, but thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I have a follow-up question?
Oh, go right ahead.
In regards to the Atlas mapping, is it a requirement that all teachers make their own map?
No, they're done by subject, by grade level.
So subject by grade level, is there,
So we would have 1 third grade
right,
math curriculum map that all teachers have access to. all
They-
teachers have input to.
Okay, so all teachers do participate in this process, or only if they sign up for professional development?
During the sessions that were held, either during our half-days or our full PD days,
Right.
all teachers per grade level would work together to.
And about how long did all teachers kind of have involvement in this process?
Ooh, now you're putting me on the spot.
I mean, it's a really important question.
By hours or by days?
Hours, days, either of the above.
Altogether by grade level, probably 20, between 20 and 25, I would say.
Each teacher had 25 hours of input into their maps,
20, yes, working collaboratively.
working collaboratively.
I'm just trying to calculate over the 3 years, the amount of PD
So
time
that's
that was,
3 years.
Yeah, it's been 3 or 4.
2.5
Been
years,
3
yeah.
years, okay.
Teams of teachers, though, Ms. Griffin,
Right.
not each teacher
Not
was-
each teacher
not each teacher was
working
involved.
individually, working collaboratively for the probably 20 or 25 hours.
Okay. I will speak for myself as an educator.
Sure.
I'm constantly updating my Atlas maps. Every particular unit I do, I reflect on my practices and I say, okay, this was in the best interest of my students, this is how they learned, and I need to tweak or
Correct.
regenerate these maps.
Correct.
I think it's good that that much time has been put forth already, and that's commendable, but I really think it's not enough. I honestly think that if these are going to be useful and meaningful, it's an ongoing reflective process, and it needs to be something that is used consistently where teachers are going back, they're reviewing it, and you're running reports and you're utilizing the capabilities of Atlas, and it's just not a stagnant document where,
Right.
you know, when we have professional development, we input things. And if we don't have that time, we don't. And I know that these teachers in our district have gotten paid for this, and I think that's absolutely fantastic. But I also think professional responsibilities of teachers is sometimes you don't get paid for this type of work, and you do it because that's part of your responsibility as an educator. So I just feel like these maps are crucial to get us to kind of go through and get to the vision where we need to get with our children. And it's tough. This is the hard work in teaching. This is the stuff that
Right.
sometimes, I mean, God love the teachers we have in our district. I mean, nobody wants to sit in front of a computer and map curriculum and reflect upon it so frequently. However, this is what's going to make us a level 1 district when we do these things. And importing the common assessments and going back and tweaking those things and refining those things and tying them to the, you know, probably our DDMs that I haven't heard discussed and things like that that I'm sure are ongoing and being worked
Right.
and looked at. It's, you know, this is a program that really needs to be kind of maybe utilized a little bit more. So I'm excited. I'm excited that there's been a start. And I really hope to hear that there's more training for the staff that there needs to be and, you know, more work.
Yeah, good, thank you. So, continue, please, sir.
So if we could continue, the second initiative, still we're talking about the same objective of building the shared responsibility for academic, social, and emotional achievement of all students. The second initiative under that is geared towards trying to engage parents and the community in support of this. And activities that come under that, that initiative were things that were listed as, for example, increase attendance at the superintendent and school committee community forums through improved marketing. We have a school committee, we have a superintendent forum a week from Wednesday, for example, that Ms. Daly and I are going to be co-leading about the Common Core state standards. I have implemented the superintendent's listening tour sessions where monthly I'm in different locations around the community and available to hear from and engage with parents in any way possible. those are just examples of those kinds of things that we're trying to do. To the right there, supper with the super was replaced with the listening tour. Mr. Yvonne, before he left, filled in this section here. And it's accurate. I mean, there haven't been suppers with the super. We're trying different ways to ensure that people have access to the superintendent. Second would be meeting with families of students with chronic attendance issues. Students with chronic attendance issues to stress the importance of regular daily attendance. When I came into the district, I have to be honest, I kept hearing that attendance was a big concern. Attendance is a big concern. And on average, daily attendance in the buildings is quite high. But we do have too many students who are chronically absent from school. We do have pockets of students who, by the end of the year, have missed 10%, meaning 18 or more days of the school year. And we do need to do a better job of targeting those specific kids and providing them and their families with the supports that they need to get into class. So as a matter of fact, tomorrow I'm meeting with the principals and our new director of technology, who's going to be one of our real movers in terms of data collection around how do we codify our approaches to addressing chronic absenteeism in the schools. And so that meeting is taking place tomorrow, and we're looking to, again, develop district-wide approaches to addressing this issue of chronic absenteeism. The third initiative there, or activity I should say, is to develop consistently applied district-wide policies and procedures regarding student attendance. That supports the above. Investigate social networking presence and protocol for the school district. I can only say what I've been told, but from the use of our front page, our web page, the district web page, I'm told that there has been more activity on that page in the last few months than there had been in the last few years. We're trying to make an effort to keep people updated, to get announcements out using that vehicle, including advertising the forum, and we will be posting school committee agendas to that page. Additionally, I've established a superintendent's Twitter feed, and for people who are familiar with that, it's right there on the page and they can read from it. For people who aren't familiar with what Twitter is, but it's just another social networking tool that we can use to continually get information out and interact with folks around things that are happening in the schools. We're trying to continually use those to find ways to bring parents up to speed on what we're doing, to get the good word out about what's happening in our schools, to control the narrative in a positive way. And before the weekend, we also launched the Oxford Public Schools Facebook page. And if folks, we had like 100 people sign up and like it today. If people haven't seen that yet and you're on Facebook, if you go to the Oxford Public Schools Facebook page and like the page, you will also have that opportunity to be kept abreast of things that are going on in the district. Cancellation notices, which we'll talk about later, will be on there, and that kind of information. So we're making gains there. When I inherited the plan, it said to do these, investigate a social networking presence and protocol. I don't believe that there were timelines attached, but these are just things that are already in process. We're having those go. Continue to promote and maintain individual classroom fusion pages. Fusion pages are teacher web pages and departmental web pages, and we have had some inconsistency across the district. There are teachers who use that quite regularly and keep it very well updated, and there are others who are not as comfortable with the technology or are not on as often as their peers. So we are trying to encourage teachers to make regular use of the fusion pages. Frankly, the fusion pages, in the EdEval system, standard 3 for teacher eval and for my eval and for everybody else is around family and community engagement. So any teachers who are using those fusion pages on a regular basis are naturally creating great evidence for that standard. It's only going to benefit them in their evaluations. It's going to benefit parents in creating this two-way communication. It's going to benefit students in making clear to their families what the expectations are and how families can support their children in their learning. So we're trying to encourage that, greater use of that, and articulate expectations for parent involvement in their children's education at all levels. So we're trying to really reach out to folks and say, here's how you can join us as partners. We plan to leverage these social media tools and others to do that. And frankly, next week's, well, The forum on the Common Core State Standards, a week from Wednesday, is also part of that conversation about, here's what the standards say, here's what all kids need to know and be able to do by the end of the year, here's what we're doing to ensure that that happens, here's how you can help us and help your children in that. So we're looking to engage folks in that. So that is that second initiative under that first objective, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions or comments regarding that. Or we can continue on.
One all set?
Of course, I'm full of comments today.
Oh, go ahead.
I apologize, Sam, I think I'm taking your place here with all the comments.
No problem.
I brought up before that I think that it would be beneficial for our school district in particular to send email blasts or something from the PTO, or I know in the district that I'm in, we have one call now where we can get a weekly advance notice of the school committee agenda. And, you know, posting it in town hall is helpful. But I'll be honest with you, I walk into town hall only a handful of times a year, and that was, you know, before that I'm on this board. Now they're probably a little bit more than I'd ever imagined, but, you know, I don't particularly go to town hall and look at the bulletin board and say, oh, there's a school committee meeting tonight. And I know that right now we're really not utilizing our page to put the agenda up at all. And I think that if parents had this in a weekly packet or in hand and they saw the agenda items, they'd probably attend these meetings quite frequently. And I haven't seen attendance at these meetings be, I think, what they should be. I think it's important that that information gets out to the community about a week in advance, and not 3 or so days if possible, so people can really plan on whatever items are on the agenda and do their homework and come prepared to participate in the meeting if they want to in the community. So that's my 2 cents. But I have to say, the work that you're doing with the social media is fantastic. I think the Twitter is great. I think the Facebook and all these other ways to get out to the community has been very helpful. So.
Well, I'll second that. I know that sometime in December, I think it was, I had emailed Dr. Garceau because I was getting more feedback from parents. In particular, it had to do around school closure where the all-call system wasn't working, and parents are like, you know, I don't use Twitter, I use Facebook. I think the common perception right now is that, you know, the younger people tend to use Twitter, and, you know, people in their 20s and up are probably more apt to use Facebook. So I was thrilled when I saw it come across my my Facebook feed today that we have a Facebook page, and I think that's great. Our school committee, School Fusion page, though, to second Pal's comments, is way out of date. I mean, I think that there were, when I first joined the committee, this was prior to you coming, I wanted to look up the old minutes so I could familiarize myself with the happenings of the school committee, and I didn't have to sit through, you know, an hour plus of video, and they were really out of date. So hopefully that's something that somebody can take a look into going forward.
They're more updated now.
They are.
After, the minutes are definitely updated. I think it's just the agendas that need to get posted.
What I'd love to see at some point is perhaps the new technology director join us at a school committee meeting and talk to us a little bit about, you know, his perception. Not obviously right away. He's got to get, you know, but talk to us a little bit about where he sees the district going. One thing that I get a common feedback about is the lack of coordination with some events happening within the district. And I don't think that that's never going to be a problem. I think, you know, we're running, you know, 4 or 5 buildings plus the administration, so there's going to be some overlap, but on our front page, I believe there's a way to get an integrated calendar that includes everything that all of the building principals are adding to their calendars, just to try and help so that there's not a lot of overlap with events. I'm trying to remember a specific, and I can't recall it, but it had something to do with a night at the middle school. They had a night at the Barnes and Noble. It was a fundraising event. And there was something else going on at one of the buildings. And the PTOs, I know, at least middle school and the two elementary schools have been trying to coordinate their meetings before they schedule them. But, you know, if we had a central place to put those, I know at Chafee we had to change our bingo for a book night, one of our nights, because when the date got changed for the forum, the Common Core Forum, we had something scheduled, so we had to move that around. So just, I know this is a lot of moving targets, but anything we can do, and that's the only thing I can think of, is if we all as a district are committed to using that calendar, and I assume there's like a master that we can view online, that would be helpful when
We
trying
can
to.
certainly look at that.
Also, just on that note, and I know that the district technologist isn't here, are we heading towards Office 365? It's a new technology. You have to
There
talk
haven't
to
been any
him.
discussions about that.
Yeah.
that I've heard.
We just went to that in the city. We actually went to this weekend, and a lot of things you're talking about, the coordination of calendars, it just flows everything right in there.
You talking about like Microsoft Office?
Yeah, the Office 365,
Yep.
it puts your Outlook, puts your calendars, puts everything right in there. That's a lot of stuff, the coordination for teachers.
Or Google Calendar.
Yeah. It's a very similar to Google, it's a very similar to
Currently
Google.
use Google
yes.
Calendars.
Yeah,
But to Mr. Bitar's point, that with all those PTOs and different organizations schedule, and frankly, they're separate from the school department. They're not part of the department. But if we could find a way to house them all on the same calendar so that even those folks could see and coordinate, that would be helpful. I can certainly ask about that.
And I know they're separate, but they're the integral part of making
Oh, they
this
are,
community
certainly
work.
are.
God knows,
Yeah,
they
good
do
work.
amazing work to support the school department, which is greatly appreciated.
we're all set. Go ahead,
So moving on to the next initiative, which is about reallocating school district resources to ensure proper approach and/or program is being used to meet the needs of each student. One of the other findings of the report of 2013 was that there were few, if any, agreed-upon approaches to meeting the needs of all learners and specific instructional strategies in place in the district. So the action steps that follow here are really in response to that. The first one is implement a consistent instructional schedule at the elementary schools that includes common prep time for teachers, as well as an enrichment block to provide additional academic support, I should say. Implement the co-teaching model of instruction. Create a district literacy plan for students pre-K through 12. And that is, those are the action steps for that initiative. So, ladies, if you wanted to speak to that.
Well, I'll start out. One of the other things that helped drive this was another status that the district received, which also is a level 3 status in special education. Quite frankly, I've never been the director of a system where we were in level 3, so it was a bit of a shock to me. But I do take direction from Dr. Marcia Mitnack, who is our state director of special education and has been for 20 years. So in the letter that we got, I came here at the end of September of 2012, and that January, when we came back from Christmas vacation, we had the letter from Dr. Mitnack, and she warned me that it was coming, so I knew. And in that letter, she made several suggestions, most of it around the co-teaching piece and what some school districts or some states call response to intervention. Massachusetts has further refined it, and they call it MTSS, which is Massachusetts Tiered System of Supports, which means that we provide differentiated instruction in a variety of ways for all of our students, whether they need a plan or they don't need a plan. Rather than wading through all of that, there are so many things that teachers naturally do. It's part of just good teaching practice, just good classroom work, and they don't think about that. They just do it naturally. And so how do we capture that and put that together for our students, as well as providing additional time? What tends to happen is that our students fall behind in basic skills, whether it's basic math skills or basic reading skills, and it often happens when they're very young. You know, our students come to us with a variety of experiences before they ever hit kindergarten, and they don't all have the staying power You can walk into a kindergarten classroom even in December or January, and sometimes you think, oh my goodness, we've got children having trouble sitting in their seats and whatever. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they have a disability, but it may mean that they just need time to catch up. And if we don't deal with that lack of basic skills when they're little, and we call that early intervention, then those skill gaps get wider and wider and wider as they get older. And of course, when we hit 4th grade, I think it's more like 3rd grade. We used to say that at the end of 3rd grade, you stopped learning to read, and in 4th grade, you were reading to learn. It's happening earlier now. I want to say even sometimes as early as kindergarten, depending on the standards that we're dealing with. So we need to address that, and it becomes more difficult as we're drilling in content for our students to also catch them up on those basic skills and do that all in one 45-minute block or one 50-minute block or whatever the block of time happens to be, which means that we need to still do the content. And everybody must be exposed to the Common Core, but we also need to deal with those basic skills that our students don't have. So how do we keep them at this level and bring them up on this side? And it's quite a balancing act to do that. So one of the biggest things that we found that was important for us to do was to have a concrete schedule at the 2 elementary schools. We did some needs assessment work last year, starting in November, asking people who come into the classroom, whether it's Title I teachers or our literacy folks down at the elementary schools, our related service and special education providers, or other people, what is the biggest hindrance? What do you see are the biggest roadblocks? Where do you see we're making good strides? And one of the issues was the schedule. And the fact that they might be scheduled to see a student during the ELA block, but when they went in, they weren't doing ELA. They were doing something else. So finding the time to have that concrete schedule, to actually put it in there and say to teachers, you have this 45 minutes to do ELA. Here it is, it's yours. And we're not going to interrupt you. We're not going to bother you. This is set aside for you to do, and put in a concrete schedule. So that was a major undertaking. A huge undertaking that I believe Mr. Matthew and Mrs. Daly and I actually wore the seats out in the central conference room, hours and hours and hours of this, with a lot of work with other people involved. And so those were adopted, and that has made a huge difference because it provides a block of time every day by grade level. So that kindergarten has a block of time every day where all of the teachers in kindergarten have their prep time. So it's all across the board at the same time. Now, it's not the same thing as common planning time, but they do have prep time together at the same time. So they could utilize that. Again, as I said, it's not common prep, but it is common planning. The same thing in 2nd grade, the same thing in 3rd grade. And what happens during that period of time, and that goes all the way through 4th, what happens during that period of time is what we call an impact block. Which you could call it MTSS or you could call it RTI or whatever, but it allows for students to work in small groups, not coming out of their Common Core, but to work in small groups that we determine focus on their basic skill needs that comes from all the data that we collect, and we collect a lot of it, and we look at it frequently and update it frequently. So our MAP scores, our DIBEL scores, scores from the Envision Math, scores now from the Wonders program, a lot of other scores come together to help us work on that, and we update it frequently, and it's fluid. And also to provide those students who don't need that type of intervention with more enrichment, so that we're trying to meet all the various levels for all of our students. So that has been a really huge piece, and we are really, I think, doing a pretty good job on that one. It still needs refining. Harder to do at the secondary levels than it is at the elementary, but there's work on the secondary schedules as well. So we're working on that one, and I think we're doing a pretty good job. We also worked with Dr. Roberta Green, who was a reading and neuropsychologist, to put together a view of what reading looks like, the neurological view of reading, and how children learn to read, and how we teach them to read, and different approaches that we need to use based on students' strengths. Because some things work well with some students and some work well with others, and we can't be a one-size-fits-all, no matter what we're looking for, because our kids aren't one-size-fits-all. So that's been another big piece. We continue to work at that. We're going to be working more at sharing that with our staff as we get together. I'm just waiting for the final approval on another grant that I've written that's related to all of the reading pieces. So once that gets approved, then I'll be able to put together focus groups, stipend money. So that's that piece. Co-teaching model was something, again, that we looked at that was pretty much started with a directive from Dr. Mitnack, as well as us looking to see what our students were being exposed to and were not being exposed to. When you start to do an item analysis of MCAS and other tests, a lot of our universal screeners, whether it's MAPS or whatever, you start to see, when you look at what our students were being exposed to, we saw many of our students not being in the regular classrooms at all, not having that core content, and there is no place richer for learning than the classroom. They're getting what is coming at them from all of their peers, they're getting to interact, they're getting to learn. I don't care how good we are at doing self-contained programs, there's just no way to replicate all of the good stuff that goes on in a regular classroom. So in order to do that, again, we used grant money, and we brought in Dr. Kathy Picaro, who I happen to have worked with a lot in the past, and she was recommended to us by Teachers 21, so that's how we brought her in. And she continues to do training. We are going to be working with our 7th and 8th grade teachers this year. Again, the scheduling piece is a bit that we've had to work around, and we're working on that. So she'll be starting to do trainings for them this winter and continue the training she's doing with everybody else. So we had a 2-year commitment with her. So we have so far really good feedback on co-teaching. I'm in the middle of doing a lot of data collection, which I hope to have completed pretty much before the beginning of February break, so that we can start to look at our student scores from fall to January. So we've got all that mapping, and I'm also looking at how that correlates with what they're doing in the Envision math programs and what they're doing with our Wonders program as well. Because it's great to have that data that comes across on those standardized tests, but how does that relate? How does that play out into the classroom? And is there in fact a correlation? So, I mean, the one year is not going to tell us all of it, but it will give us a start, and it will help to point us, I think, to, into some other directions. So that's the co-teaching piece. And
Ashton, so I have a question on the co-teaching piece right now. Who coordinates the co-teaching? Who coordinates the co-teaching? Is it done by the building, by the principal, department head, or out of your office?
Well, what most of the buildings did was to take a look and ask who wanted to co-teach. I've done it, as both a regular ed teacher and a special ed teacher, I've done that myself. And it's like a marriage. And you really need to have people who do well together, who can play off of each other, who support each other with their knowledge. The best kind of co-teaching is that core subject teacher who has that content down, and that special ed teacher who can modify anything on the fly. And I've got to tell you, I have seen such beautiful work in some of our buildings with some of our co-teaching teams, and you would have no idea who the special ed teacher was, where the regular ed teacher was, and which students were on IEPs and which were not. We do better at it in some places than we do in others, but we'll all get there, I think. And the enthusiasm that teachers have had for this has been just monumental. People who were very concerned about it are saying, wow, it's really made a difference. So that's a great thing. Basically, it was sort of, at least at the elementary schools, we only have so many special ed people. So, who would you like to team up with? And we had a lot of volunteers. And so it was pretty much the building principal making that determination as to how to make up the team.
And the principal evaluates those pairings as well, too?
Yes.
To make sure that the IEPs are being followed and...
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So they do all of that.
And they'll give an evaluation back to you, and then you'll present that back to us, the evaluation of how this co-teaching model worked?
Absolutely. Well, we've already had some feedback from Dr. Picaro, and we're going to have more. Again, one of my biggest pieces is it translating over into scores? So are we seeing it make a change in our MAP scores? Is it making a change in our DIBEL scores? I'm hoping we can do some prediction about what our MCAS is going to look like. So if our students have increased by, say, 10% on their MAP, 10% on some of the testing, the baseline testing that we did on Wonders and that we did on Envision in the fall, are we going to see an increase in that, and will that be a predictor? So I'll be working with the teacher. I've been doing a lot of work with them already. We'll do a lot more, taking a look at this data once we get it all charted out. And our new tech director is working at helping us put together charts that hold all of this data so that we can sit down and see student progress at a glance. So we'll be looking at individual students.
I think it's fantastic that you guys are utilizing data to drive instruction, and it sounds like people are trying to kind of have some formative assessment here, which is excellent. I think that it sounds like, are you doing most of the data analysis, or teachers have their hands in it?
No, we're putting it together and then we're getting together.
Okay.
So it's not just a me, they need to be involved in this. If they're not involved in it, I can hand it to them, but it won't mean
Right.
to them what it means. We started doing a lot of this work last year and last summer, so even creating which grouping students needed to go into for the impact blocks was data that was worked on all summer long by staff. So again, I have grant money, and I put my grant money for stipends into that because it's professional development. And the latest grant that I've written is for reading, and it's about analysis of data, and then how to use that data to inform our instruction. So once that is, almost 90% of that grant is in stipend money. And that will continue from this winter, as soon as it's approved, through the spring and all through the summer, and the grant ends at the end of August. So my hope would be that we've really got some really good, solid-looking stuff by the time we finish that. But it's a great way to teach teachers how to deal with the data, and it's a less threatening way because, we're actually seeing the progress as we go along and being able to sit and say, well, geez, this isn't working, maybe we need to try this.
I think that's fantastic to
Right.
empower teachers to use that data to drive their instruction. That's what it's all about.
It is,
And,
it is.
I commend you for, taking on grants and finding creative ways to fund programs like this. I think that's fantastic, and
Well, it really works well because Mr. Matthews and Mrs. Daly and I kind of coordinate our grant work together so that we can support the different initiatives that we're doing. And it allows us to not just deal with one group of teachers, but to deal with everybody, to provide it for everyone. So it's great. It's a great collaborative group, I have to say.
How much is this grant for?
Pardon?
How much money do you have in grant money for these initiatives, like paying teachers and working on the ed
I
plans and
can't
things like
speak
that?
for Joanne and Rich. For me, it's around 650, 700,000.
Also, that's a lot of hours. That's an awful lot of
That
hours.
doesn't all come up for stipend money, it covers other things, but that's what the grants are. So I'm thinking 30, 40, about $40,000.
Oh, 40,000 in
money.
stipends?
I think that's fantastic, and I'm sure that's what you're using to fund your teachers, for teachers that are coming into the district for training. Is that grant money being used to fund, Kathy, that you spoke about
Yes,
before?
that's
and-
one of,
Okay, and
Mr.
Dr.
Matthews'
Green?
grant.
that's
that was
through-
from, the same grant that I'm talking about using now, that was from that grant from last year.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's
Mhm.
fantastic.
And I will say, because we're a level 3 district, the state directs me more in what I can do, so they don't give me quite the wide variety
Right.
that they would give a district that's not a level 2, 3. The only people who really get free flow, and it's even limited, are districts that are level 1. But it's great because they do narrow it down, and it seems to be what we need to do anyway, so I don't mind.
Right, that's nice.
Thank you. Mr. Bitar?
I just have a question regarding the co-teaching. What's the reason for the delay in implementing co-teaching in grade 7 and 8?
7 and 8, because they see so many teachers, because it's a 4-member team, and with the schedule, we just couldn't figure out how to launch it and launch it effectively, because we want to do it right, but we also want to be efficient about our use of staff.
So 5 and 6, are they pretty much stationary in a classroom with a homeroom teacher, and they don't switch around, and then at 7 and 8, they do switch
No,
classes? or-
5 and 6 have a teacher that does math, usually does math and science, and then one that does ELA and history.
Okay, but it sounds like you figured that out with 7 and 8, or it's still a work in
Yes,
progress?
we're almost there, I think. Mr. Matthew, are we almost there?
I think the schedule's there, at least what goes into the schedule, that's a different story. That's-
I would think those students need that for
Yes,
teaching.
they
Oh, they need it, we need it all the way up. It's a curriculum, it's a continuum, I'm sorry, of services, and we need it all the way up.
So, okay, let's go back, is it happening or not happening in grade 7 and 8?
It's not happening in 7 and 8. We're
Yeah,
kind of
no.
dipping our toes in the water in 7 and 8, but it's not happening with fidelity in 7 and 8. It's
I
not.
mean, with all, I mean, to be honest and candid, that, are we setting kids up to fail? If we've given him 5 and 6, you're going to co-teaching now 7 and 8.
Well, they will be
You're left on your own,
They
you've
will be
taken it away.
co-teaching in 7 and 8
But there is
next year.
not, but there is not right now.
No, there
So
isn't.
what are we doing to bridge those gaps of these children?
They are going in, first of all, they're going in and working with kids when they can. So they're dipping, the
who's
special
that?
ed
Who's that?
teachers are, as I say, dipping their toes in the water and
how
going
often
in.
do they come into service
Quite a
to
bit.
students?
Actually, they've been doing more and more of it. I'm over there on Wednesday, so I'll get a full report when I'm there.
Okay, so for next meeting, Dr. Garso, could we have a full report on this? Because I think we're getting a little bit off topic on this, and to see how this is being implemented, because I'm hearing a couple different terms, and this is a whole separate side subject. So let's get back onto this, but I think for our next meeting, can we get a report back on what the process is, the continuation into 7th and 8th? Because if it sounds like there's a bridge, or there's a gap, and we don't know who's calling what, so it's into semantics, so let's table this to our next discussion.
Absolutely.
Just before we move on, Chair, if I could.
Yeah.
Prior to this year, there was no co-teaching going on in 5 and 6 either.
Right.
So when I came into the district, what I heard was it's not easy to implement. And so the plan was to get it off the ground in 5 and 6, and then to grow it up into 7 and 8, and then we would have that continuum. We are absolutely setting students up to fail if we're not providing them regular access to the same rigorous content as their peers. And so what our special ed models had looked like previously were, in a lot of cases, students would be in a self-contained classroom, very small classroom, without access to the same content as their peers, or they would be provided resource support either in, but more often out of the classroom. So again, during the English language arts block, if I was a student on an IEP, I might be pulled out of that English language arts block and go to a small room down the hallway and work with a specialist. Well, if that's happening, I'm missing what's happening in that English language arts block. When MCAS comes around, what we're all being tested on is what everybody else had access to. So if we're never providing our students access to rigorous content, they don't have a snowball's chance in being successful on MCAS or other high-stakes tests. It's a large part of the reason we're a level 3 district. We have, to date, failed to meet the needs of our special education students, our diverse learners, and the co-teaching model and the other supports that are being provided through MTSS and the increased capacity of our teachers to meet the needs of all learners in their classrooms are going to be those things that help us close those gaps.
And the middle school level, what grade levels are being tested with the MCAS?
3 through 8.
So each grade level takes it. So I mean, and I know we'll get a full report next week, but to me, as a committee member, this is of utmost importance that this is implemented as soon as possible. Because what I'm hearing from you is the way that we did it was not servicing or providing the proper services to those kids. It's setting them up to fail. We did it, in 11 other grade levels. Let's find a way to get it done on 7 and 8. That's my personal opinion. And then before we move on too far, since I think I'm one of the only people here without the background in education, Ms. Susan, you mentioned common prep versus common planning. And I don't know if you want to take it or Dr. Garceau or somebody. Could I just have a Cliff's Notes version of the difference between the two?
By contract, all teachers in the district are afforded a certain degree of prep time. they teach X number of classes, or they teach so many hours, and then they get a prep, which is really unassigned time. It's for them to, frankly, for some of them, it's their opportunity to run to the ladies' room or to run to the copy machine, do those things. It's in some ways, it's break time, and they're entitled to that by contract, and it's common in all teacher contracts that I've ever seen. Common planning time is time that we're looking to build into the day where they're not before students, but they're doing the work that professional learning communities do. So common planning time might be time that we provide during the day so that, for example, all fourth grade teachers can meet together and be looking at student work and be comparing the standards to their instruction, ensuring that they're on the maps. And then when we have these regular data cycles where assessments are completed, the teachers can sit there and pull that apart and hash it out and identify those strategies that really worked for the vast majority of those kids, identify those students for whom it did not work, because then the next question is, all right, so then what are we going to do now? And problem solve around that. And that's the work that goes on in common planning time. So if we are able to build that into the schedules, and we are able to do that in a lot of our buildings and in a lot of grade levels, we're working to include that in the middle school schedule. It's more structured time, it's professional learning time, it's professional learning community time that frankly we have a little more control over, but teachers do the collaboration in that time, and it's more structured that way. So at the elementary level, we've built in time in common at this point. Teachers, a lot of teachers, because their specials, the way they're arranged, music and art and PE and that, may have the same break time. So they have time in common, but they don't necessarily have common planning time. So if they want to work together on those things that I talked about, it's really on a voluntary basis, and a number of our teachers do that work, but it's not something that we can require this way. So the schedule as designed is, and the schedule going on, the schedule design work happening at the middle school is meant to ensure that time is built into the day. It's professional meeting time for these teachers as professionals to do that work.
Well, I'm thrilled to hear that we've included that in the middle school redesign. And then I would assume that as that common planning time becomes more prevalent within the district, that we could do some of the teachers could do some of the things that Mrs. Griffin was mentioning before in the Atlas system.
Exactly.
So
Perfect use of that time.
Perfect
That's the
use of
work
it.
that should be happening during that time.
Well,
Absolutely.
I look forward to us finding ways to get that implemented in the other buildings, because it sounds like it's very important.
Okay, let's move forward with the
Moving
report
on.
and moving on, and a little digression.
So
but I
all
think
of
we
those,
can-
well, much of what follows has already been discussed by Ms. Susan and Ms. Daly. A lot of this is just further teasing these issues out, providing supports to all students, having the data systems that inform the supports to all students, ensuring that our teachers are making the most of their time and are being as efficient as they can in meeting the needs of students. So if we move to Initiative 2, remember the first one was around building this sense of shared community responsibility for the success of all of our students. Initiative 2 is about reviewing, identify, and document a continuum of services, so which Ms. Susan has talked about now, MTSS, and support services for special ed students, for English language learners, for Title I students, et cetera, with fidelity from building to building across the district, and develop additional services as needed. So if we have 5 buildings in the district, we don't want very disparate approaches going on to meet the needs of these students. We're trying to bring things in so that we have the Oxford approach, a highly successful approach. We know it will be when it's built. But this is how we do things, building to building, recognizing that there are going to be some differences from classroom to classroom and building to building, but a real structured approach to identifying those students who are coming off the rails and having those interventions in place for them to meet their needs, and also having a continuum of enrichment activities at the other end of the spectrum. So we want to ensure that all kids are learning, having access to rigorous content, and then are being providing with the support that they need when they need it, and the opportunities to go deeper and expand and bring deeper levels of understanding and enrichment to the work when they're ready for that. So that's what Initiative 2 is all about. And how that breaks out in part is, the plan is to create a guide and directory listing of support services and contacts for parents. So if I'm a parent who's got a child that I'm concerned about and I'm struggling, how do I know where to go? How do I know where to turn? How do I know who to contact in the district? Or how do I know how to have that conversation with my pediatrician and initiate that conversation, or reach out to other specialists? So part of the plan is that the department will be developing those resources and making them available to parents, again, in hard copy form, on our website, through Facebook, whatever, so that we're educating parents about how they can best support their students. We also need to create a procedural handbook for staff outlining professional responsibilities. There are a number of things that happen in district, a number of practices that are in place, and when I try and get at, well, why do we do it that way, the common response is, well, that's the way we've always done it. And so that doesn't mean that it's always done the same way in every building, and everybody's doing the best they can, but some people are doing things in different manners, and it's not as efficient as it could be. So we want to develop handbooks and procedures around that. That also starts tomorrow with the Director of Technology. So for an example, we have data, we collect data, and it gets reported to the state on attendance and discipline and those kinds of things. If the secretaries in different buildings are entering those data points into the computer in different ways, we don't end up with data that's as clean as it could be. So we need to codify that. So Mr. Phillips is going to be meeting with principals tomorrow, and then eventually leading training sessions with all clerical staff in the district about, if we have to record a suspension, or we have to record a medically excused student, here's how it gets entered. This is the one way that it happens. We'll end up with much cleaner reports. So that has to happen. And then a procedural handbook for administrators outlining district-wide procedures and protocols. Again, everybody's doing the best that they can and the best that they know how, but we haven't necessarily provided our administrators, our principals, with the guidance that would be most helpful to them in a way that's very structured and unified. So plenty of times, Ms. Parmalee or Mr. Canacchioli or somebody will be calling me and say, Mark, how do we handle this situation? How do we do this thing? Who do I contact for that? We want to have that documented as well, so that our folks are as organized and as supportive as they can be. And then Initiative 2 under there is continue to refine the implementation of the Massachusetts tiered system of support and the co-teaching model, much of what we've just discussed now. And in order to do that, that's going to require ongoing training of our administrators. Much of that is being led by Ms. Susan and Director Daly. They work very closely around planning professional development for both teachers and administrative staff. And so for our administrators, they need to know what we even mean by this Massachusetts tiered system of support and how it all plays out and what the forms are and what the protocols are. And so that work is happening there. In order for administrators, building administrators, principals to support the implementation of co-teaching, they need training themselves on what it is, what it looks like when it's being done well, what the possible pitfalls are, and so that training is being provided. 2.2E is evaluate the ongoing effectiveness of the MTSS and co-teaching model and its implementation. So Director Susan just mentioned that she's collecting data on an ongoing basis about the efficacy of the co-teaching model. The chairman has asked for a status report on the implementation, and we'll have that certainly by the first February meeting. We could have that in place, right? You're going to have to do that. And so that work has to be in place. And that fleshes out really all of Objective 2. Again, a lot of your questions to Ms. Daly and Ms. Susan were around these issues, but if you wanted to revisit any of that before we move on to Objective 3, we could do that.
I do. In regards to addressing students' IEPs or 504s or individual student support plans, whatever these are students that are in most need in our district have, are there liaisons at each building that handle that, or do you handle the caseload individually? I'm really concerned, so I'm looking forward to your response.
Basically, we have, there's a system in special ed, the special ed part of my job. And basically what happens, except for the outer districts, because I have been doing some of them. Now I'm going to be back on the road doing all of our out-of-district meetings, but I sort of have an agenda with that as well, because I'm looking to see about bringing students back in to districts, so I'm the one on the road with those
Right.
meetings. But basically, meetings are generally set up and chaired by team chairs. I have a team chair that takes care of the middle school and the high school, shares part of the responsibility at coffee, and then an elementary team chair who takes care of students in pre-K through grade 4.
Now, who are these team chairs?
The team chair at, the elementary team chair is Heather Harriman, and they've both been doing this for quite some time.
Yeah.
And she does pre-K through 4. Chris Pietro does grades 5 through 12 plus, because we have students who stay with us, some of them until they're 22.
So
Chris-
5 through, say that again? Grade-
5 through 12, what we say 12 plus.
Okay.
So students who
Right.
stay with us until they're 22, a lot of the transition pieces. And then he also chairs some of the meetings, or co-chairs some of the meetings at Coffee.
Okay.
And Rich Maliff also chairs meetings at Coffee.
Okay. I just want to speak to this for a minute, and I know that this meeting is going long, and I didn't know, to be quite honest, that our district was in such, as, it's really, this is alarming to me. I can personally speak, being in a middle school where I taught for 13 years, that we have a liaison at every grade level individually.
Oh,
handing
we
the
do as
caseload.
well. We do as well. So the person who chairs the meetings
Right.
is the team chair, but each student has a liaison.
Okay.
Who is usually the special education teacher that sees that student the most, or if the student is only on a plan for, say, speech services or OT, it would be the speech person or the OT person who is their liaison.
Okay. I'd love to know the caseload of these individuals that handle this. I want to really have a perspective. Are we overloading our support staff? Are we giving the right amount of support to these people that have to service these kids? I know that when you have the responsibility as a co-teacher or anybody that's, working with these kids to support them, and you have to worry about writing or drafting IEPs or goals and other things in regards to, filing that paperwork. And I don't know if you're doing it on East Bed and different things like that. Sometimes that's a position in itself.
The liaisons don't write the IEPs. They write goals and objectives. The team chairs write the IEPs.
And so the team chairs, this is a big caseload for a team chair to handle so many schools. So many grade levels. That's really concerning. I know that our particular chairs handle one grade. There's 3 chairs in our middle school, 6, 7, and 8. And they handle that caseload, and then they have other people that help support them to do that. And, that's not, I just feel like that's a lot.
If I may interject, when I attended a CPAC meeting, I forget when now, I want to say November.
November, I think you were there in November.
And I don't know that you were present at this meeting when I gave the report, but the overwhelming feedback that I received from the folks at CPAC was that, our special ed department has come a long way, and that they complimented you on where we were versus where we are now, but that they did feel as though the department was stretched thin. And I don't recall the numbers, but they had given me some numbers as far as the number of students in Oxford on IEPs is percentage-wise much higher than some of our neighboring districts. So I don't know what the staff is like, but that is something that I think, to Mrs. Griffin's point, that we need to continue to evaluate and to ensure that all students, including the special ed students, are having their needs met appropriately, and that we're not putting too much of a burden on the support staff. I know during budget workshop, we talked about some of the lengthy times that it was taking to get students evaluated. And I know we're looking on making some changes next year, but I think that was specific to certain areas. So hopefully we can do whatever we need. And we know that the budget is tight, but we also know that we need to make sure that all these kids have fair and appropriate educations.
Yep.
And I think you're doing great work, and I want to reiterate it. It sounds like we're coming a long way and we're working together, but I think that this is, we really need to know what we need. And if this isn't coming to light because of questions that we're asking at these opportune times, we're in the dark. The community's in the dark. That's why I think it's really important that folks attend these meetings
Yes.
and tell us things in regards so we can advocate for them here. Another question I have is, I know we're planning, that common planning time's coming into place and whatnot, but when do teachers sit down that are not in self-contained classrooms, that might be at the middle school, that have kids coming in and out of their class, and so they might see a child maybe once or twice a day? When do they sit down and say, you know, I got a concern about Susie Q here. She's not necessarily meeting the grade, or, you know what, Susie Q is doing really good in my class, and I need to push her into a different level track here. How often do teachers have an opportunity to discuss students and make adjustments for their needs?
One of the things that they do is they have what we call BBT,
Right.
building-based teams,
Okay.
and they bring students up to building-based teams, whether they're on an IEP or not on an IEP, whether they're on a 504 or not on a 504. That's really one of the places where they talk. One of the things about the co-teaching model, and as we refine it more, and as Dr. Garso explained, the common prep versus the common planning. Some of those issues are addressed in a common planning time. We're also working with, Mrs. Daly is working with the principals on building-based data teams. So we've been, on the district administrative level, we've been doing that now this is our third year for the district data team, and it's filtering down to building-based, and that's another piece of it. So Mrs. Daly has been working with them on how to take a lot of this data that we're talking about and drilling down. But there's our consultant piece where they can consult with service providers if things are not working well. Some of the programs have a built-in component where everybody gets together based on those specific needs of those students, a higher level need.
In the district that I'm in, each week we have 2 meetings that are completely student-related. They're student meetings, they're 40-minute meetings, and we sit down and we discuss, you know, twice a week, our concerns about students or students that we see that need some different type of, you know, things to push them and help them excel. And we're constantly discussing our
Yeah.
students at a team level. And it sounds like that's not here right now. I understand the building-based support teams that you guys have where, you know, a concern might be brought up and there might be a protocol to kind of get something on an agenda for a meeting like that. But teachers need an opportunity where they can sit down in a room every week and say, this kid's slipping, or this kid's doing really well, and, you know, maybe we should contact their parents and praise them for whatever they did this week. So, you know, kids are supported and whatnot and feel like they're making some positive strides to build that culture that I'm sure that we're working very hard on here. I don't hear that that's available, and, yeah?
Can I address that?
Absolutely.
Oxford Middle School does have a common planning time period, where I think a lot of that is discussed. In grade 5 and 6, it's team-based, so it would be the 2 teachers that have children in common.
Okay.
One would be the math and science teacher, and her partner his partner would be the ELA and social studies teacher, and they would have students in common that they would discuss at that time. In the 7th and 8th grade level, they're more departmentalized, but they have their team. So they have the science teacher, the math teacher, the ELA teacher. They meet once a rotation also for that purpose, to discuss
What's once a
things.
rotation?
I'm sorry?
How often is once a rotation?
Once every 4 days.
Okay. And they only meet by their discipline? They don't meet
No, they
together?
meet with the children that they share in common
For the 7th and 8th grade?
also, yes. But it would be the math teacher, the science teacher, social studies
They all
teacher.
come together?
All together,
That's
yes,
it. Okay,
yes.
I appreciate hearing that. All right, sorry, I'm feeling.
No problem. 7:30, Tyler, if you have homework, you can be excused if you want, you can stay.
Poor guy.
So moving on to the final initiative is around, and this again is something that was glaring to me when I came into the district, and it was mentioned in the site visit of 2013, but the ladies have talked about the need for this as well, and with the supports that are being put in place to ensure that we have this. We really need a data-driven culture in the district where we're looking not just at student achievement data to inform instructional decision-making and strategic planning, but attendance data and disciplinary data and health data and data on where our students attend schools after leaving Oxford High and the extent to which we've prepared them for success at BC or BU or wherever these kinds of places are, whatever schools they should choose. And so what we're really trying to do is build this data-driven culture, because frankly, without data, we're just people with opinions. We can say all these things, and we can think all these things, and we can say, well, I think what they ought to do is this, but without data to support it, without real numbers, we're really kind of just talking out of the top of our heads. We don't have anything to base those claims upon. So what's key is, and this was referenced too, Ms. Griffin raised this issue, that teachers need to be engaged in data analysis. Well, in order to engage them in data analysis, we have to first provide them access to that data. So we're working with Ms. Daly's office and Director Susan's office, and we're very excited to have Mr. Phillips on board, our new tech director, to ensure that all teachers have access to the latest assessment data, whether it's MCAS, MAP data, DIBELS, any other standardized tests, that they have access to it, and then not only that they have access to it, but that they know how to make sense of it. So that's some of that capacity building that we have to do. So we want to continue to make student data available to stakeholders within 2 weeks of becoming available. So one of the problems with MCAS, for example, is that MCAS is administered once a year in the spring, and we get the results towards the end of the summer. That's far too late to do anything about it. So as we develop these more common, frequent, formative, and collaboratively developed assessments, we want to have quick turnaround on that data, because, like I said about MCAS, it's not frequent enough, and the data that we get from that is not nearly timely enough. So we're working to ensure that this information is turned around within 2 weeks, and the teachers have the opportunity to sit and pull it apart. Principals need to know how to support the teachers in doing that, so that's some of the PD that's going on, and some of the training I've been providing, and some of the work I do with principals ongoing. We want to hold information, we had said in the plan that we would be holding information sessions to help parents understand report scores from standardized tests. A lot of that happens during those parent conference days at the particular schools, and schools, Title I schools in particular, have to have Title I nights where they present the data and show how the interventions we have in place are supporting student growth. We also want to engage even more, engage students as stakeholders in this. We want to build students' capacity through data to recognize their strengths and areas for growth and goal set. So that's a big part of what's going on in the advisory programs, and as we strengthen our advisory programs, that'll continue. But students need to know themselves as learners, and data can inform that. We want to continue to offer professional development to the faculty, enabling to access and effectively use data, ensure that all faculty have access to the SEMS tracker. SEMS tracker is where we house all the information around individualized education plans, IEPs and 504s, and those kinds of plans that are in place for students. Professionals have a professional obligation to know what the content of those plans, and in order for them to access that through SEMS and ensure that they are meeting the requirements of the IEPs and the 504s and that, teachers need to know how to access those plans, how to read them, and how to act upon them. So we need to provide that training, and that goes on quarterly. As was mentioned, we have building level data teams to continue the work done at the district level so that all staff understand where to locate and how to interpret data. Those data teams mirror what happens at the district level, and they're happening at the building level. And then those conversations need to continue in CP common planning time and in faculty meetings, and continue the collaborative meetings of the district data team. That's quite all right. Continue to familiarize staff with various types of data through the increased display, discussion of data walls in every building, updated quarterly. Data walls are just that, where we post the latest information. And once it's posted, we're in a position to say, all right, so what is it telling us? And so we want to, again, engage parents and teachers and, most importantly, students in those conversations. And we've spent a lot of time talking about interventions for students who are struggling, and MTSS or RTI or, the supports that we provide. Without data to inform that, we're just shooting in the dark. We don't know what kids are struggling with, what specific skills or content, and then we're not in a position to identify the prescription. How are we going to address this and close that gap for those students? So we need to continue professional development opportunities for administrators and educators, ensuring proper calibration of observations of standards and indicators as consistent expectations of best practices. This is around educator eval being informed by data as well, and best practices. Last part, before we open this, well, I guess that is the last, so that's the last one. If there was anything that you want to discuss around building this data-driven culture and also educator eval informed by data to continually improve practice. If you remember our 3 circles, our second one, our green one, is to continually improve educator effectiveness and build leadership capacity. We don't do that without professional development, and we don't do that without it being data-driven. And so that's where we are with that part of the AIP. Was there any other?
Same good.
I believe Mr. Yvonne was chair of this. Is Mr. Phillips chair of the data district team?
Actually, Ms. Daly leads most of that work, but Mr. Phillips is quite adept with data and data analysis. He did a lot of work with that in his previous district, and he's very excited to help us build these systems that we're talking about tonight.
Am I correct in that Mr. Yvonne was prior to his departure?
No, well, not since I've been here.
He's not. Oh, okay. I was told.
He was on the data team, the
He was on
district
the
data team.
Okay.
And when he was principal at Chafee, he led the team, the Chafee team, the building team there.
Okay. So, being that he was part of the team, and he obviously had a strong background on the educational side, is Mr. Phillips able to contribute in that capacity, or do we have a gap? Okay.
No, I think we have some enhanced capacity. He brings some skills that Mr. Yvonne didn't have. Mr. Yvonne has some that Mr. Phillips didn't, but Mr. Phillips seems to have some great skills in the areas where we need that work.
So Mrs. Daly's chairing the district data team? And do you then serve on will serve on the teams in each building, or?
No, those are generally run by the building administrator. I visit them, I go to them, I don't attend every meeting every month in each of the buildings. But yes, they are held.
Are all of the building administrators part of the district data team?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure
That's
that
how
there's
we ensure that
continuity.
continuity. What happens
That's
at the district level, they bring back to the building level.
Right.
And they should be modeling much of the same work, the same protocols for doing data analysis and those things at the building level so that it can be shared out all the way down to the classroom level.
Thank you.
Sure.
Very good. Anyone else? Anything else want to add to this?
One last thing.
Go right ahead.
DDMs. Does our district have district-determined measures? Are those being worked on by different disciplines at this point and being developed?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
And we have an agreement in place with the OEA regarding DDMs.
Okay, super. Good. I'd love to see them at some point.
Thank you. I just want to just chime in very briefly and thank you for your work. We have come up miles and miles from where we were last year and previous. Now we can talk about data, we can talk about how we're being used data, how we're training it, and where it's going with. So we just still, as these documents say, we are not on target, but I think we've closed some gaps that we're getting to better places, and it takes time. It takes time, and it takes everyone buying in, as superintendents, there's a lot of time, being on the same page, that this is how we do it, this is how we do it. Well, now this is how the district does it. And I think that's where we get progress with that. So thank you for the time and patience, and again,
Answering all
it's the
our
first time we're here, first time we're hearing a lot of this, and that we have to ask questions. Is that
Absolutely.
under previous administrations, things slid, and that we can't have that. And so now we want to know where we stand.
Ask all
Very
you
good.
want.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, ladies.
In our next item on our agenda, we have the proposal adoption of district-wide, and excuse me for my pronunciation on this,
Pediculosis.
pediculosis or head lice.
So this proposed policy came to me from our Director of Nursing, who is one of our nurses at the high school, and she oversees all these matters. And at the beginning of my term, I believe it was actually in August that she first contacted me, she raised the concern that the district had a no-nit policy, meaning that if a student was seen by the school nurse and there was any evidence at all of head lice, including nits, which from my understanding are not active lice, students were being excluded from school. And the way that we went about that was often very, frankly, traumatizing to students. Students were immediately identified and barred from class. And this was not an uncommon practice, the way that Oxford had been doing it, but in recent years, it has become very uncommon. And based on the recommendations of the American Association of Pediatrics and the American Medical Association and numerous other organizations, Ms. Semba made the recommendation that we revisit that policy and get it into place more in line with what other communities in the 21st century are doing around this issue. Head lice is a hot item. It's something that gets people very anxious. A lot of that anxiety, though, is not supported by science. It's not supported, again, by the recommendations of the pediatricians and those kinds of things. And then, as I mentioned before, in the context of the AIP, when I asked Elaine, I said, well, where is that policy, the current policy? None was to be found. This is just the kind of the way we do it. So what I asked her to do was draft a proposed policy. She did that based on what a number of our neighbors are doing and what other school districts across the country are doing, and you have that there. And also in the document, you have supporting documentation around the issue of pediculosis and school nurses taking the lead, which I provided just as information to support your decision-making around this. So it's at my recommendation that we adopt the proposal as developed by the Director of Nursing as policy in the district going forward, and our handbooks for next year would reflect that.
Thank you, Dr. Garza. So I'll read the proposed policy. Students with live head lice or nets, eggs, found on the hair shaft closer than 1 centimeter from the scalp, viable in parentheses, by the school nurse, will be referred for treatment at the end of the school day. The parent guardian will be instructed in removal of all live lice and all viable nets. Immediate removal of the student from school is unnecessary. If the student has lice, the individual has probably been infested for weeks. Improper removal of the student could lead to embarrassment as well as time taken away from learning. Following treatment, the student will be rechecked before returning to the classroom. If no live lice or nits on the hair shaft closer than 1 centimeter from the scalp are found by the school nurse, the student is cleared for reentry. If any nits are found during the recheck, the student will be assessed again in 1 week. Students with nits further than 1 centimeter from the scalp, non-viable, will not be referred for treatment and remain at the building. At the school nurse's discretion, siblings and others felt to be in close contact with a student diagnosed with pediculosis will be checked, and inspection of entire classrooms is not necessary unless advised by the nurse. The school nurse may exclude a student with repeated infestations of live lice or viable nits, or a student with current active infestation for which there is an apparent lack of adequate follow-through by the parent or guardian. And this is a proposed policy. I would open up for discussion. Anyone, any questions? Do we have representative of the nursing staff here?
No, we do not.
Okay. All right. I have read through this. I think it's a good policy. I think the one that works, particularly in forms of, has been approved by along with the guidance of the school physician, that I would entertain a motion to accept this policy as read, and to waive the right of second readings on this.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Let the record show 3 in the affirmative, 2 absent. The new policy regarding pediculosis has been approved.
Thank you.
Let me just jump down here. Our next item on the agenda is the parent responses to the OXPS community survey, which Dr. Garceau has put together. One of his first items of business is we have to come together and we find out what's going on within the community, and he's put together the survey. And Dr. Garceau, go right ahead.
Thank you, Chairman Coonan. So, coming into the district, yes, it was imperative to get a handle on where we are and what we've been doing and what goes on in Oxford. And there were a number of sources that were considered. Again, I frequently reference the site visit of 2013, where the state came out and made findings and made recommendations for improving the district. Another document critical to ascertaining where we were as a district is the AIP itself. By looking through those objectives, even as I prepared to pursue this position, I was able to see what the district's priorities are and the kind of work that was going on and what we were trying to accomplish. I also felt that it was really important to engage as many stakeholders in the community, because the Oxford Public Schools isn't this building or Maple Road. The Oxford Public Schools is part of the fabric of the Oxford community. And I felt it was really important to try and engage as many folks as possible in sharing with us their perspectives of what the district does well, of what some of the challenges are facing the district, of why the success of the district is important to the community and members of the community. So the survey went live in August, I believe. It's in the full report here, which will be released to the public tomorrow. But the survey went live online this summer, and I and others tried every trick in the book to get people to participate and to give us their feedback. It was done anonymously, and people were asked to just respond to a few questions. Again, why is the success of the Oxford Public Schools important to you? What do you see as some of the real strengths of the department? What are some of the challenges you would say are in the way of improvement for the department? How might you suggest we go about addressing some of those challenges? And then there's always, for me, I always like to have a kind of a catch-all, any other comments type question. So we had over 200, maybe 225 participants take part in the survey. A number of those were teachers. A number, and the survey allowed for people to identify themselves as such. So we had teachers, we had parents, we had parents of students in the system currently, we had residents who either do not have children in the district or do not have children in the district any longer, retired folks who are still contributing taxpayers and still have a vested interest in the district. We polled support staff, we polled virtually everybody in the district. And tonight what I wanted to do is take a few minutes to talk about the parent responses. And when you have 220-something surveys completed around 5 questions, making sense of it and sorting it out, I have to admit, is quite a bear. And I'll be eternally grateful to Ms. Palmina Griffin and Ms. Bellhumer, who helped chair data analysis teams made up of parents and teachers and support staff, And we would come together and pull together all these comments and then try and bucket them and see, well, what are these things about? And where does this fall? And what does this mean? And what are people saying? And we tried to really keep the what does it mean part out of the conversation until the very end when we had gone through. But the analysis was quite a piece of work. And so again, what I wanted to share was some big themes that came out of parent responses. So I won't read the full report for parents, but for example, when parents were asked to describe why the success of the Oxford Public Schools is important to them, what became really obvious was that people talked in terms of town pride and community pride and wanted to be proud of the district and wanted to be proud to say that they were members of the Oxford community. They live in the town with, the exemplary school district. Folks wanted to be able to say those kinds of things. And so now, quoting from the report, they voiced strong desire to see renewed senses of both community and town pride centered around the school system. Many decried the current level 3 status, and many look forward to seeing the district turn around. Coming in as an outsider, I've heard time and time again that this was once the premier district in the region. And I have said since I came on board that I'm committed to ensuring that we get back there. Folks in town remember that and want to be proud of the district and take great pride in being part of the solution to that. Likewise, a number of the residents in town who do not currently have children in the district schools also pointed to the roles that quality schools play in supporting property values, attracting new families to the town, and positively contributing to the town's image. So parents and residents alike said that when you have strong school systems, you're more attractive to young families who want to move into town, thereby growing the tax base and improving the quality of life for everybody involved. Makes perfect sense to me, but it was a frequent comment that came up. Quality schools play and support, I said that, excuse me. In response to the question, from your perspective, what are the strengths of the Oxford Public Schools? In essence, what are those one or two aspects of the OXPS that need to be preserved at all costs? Whether it was parents, residents, teachers, support staff, overwhelmingly, the number one response was that the strength lies in our people. The dedicated, caring, talented, supportive, professional teachers in our schools. Those are all quotes from various statements made in there. A number of parents, when they talked about the strengths of the district, also highlighted some of the exemplary programs we have in place, the course offerings that are offered, and programs like our NJROTC, the STEM offerings, the science, technology, and engineering and math offerings that are getting more and more embedded at the middle and high school level. The arts, number of parents spoke about the exemplary music program here at OHS, the visual art program, the theater program at the middle school, the outstanding chorus and instrumental programs at the middle school were highlighted a number of times. Another thing that was highlighted a number of times was the advanced placement courses that we offer. People identified those as strengths, but when we talk about challenges or solutions to improving the district, those also came up that said, when folks said, well, we have them, we need even more. We need to strengthen the core instruction. We need to strengthen the rigor of our offerings in the buildings. So far and away, though, the most common response was the strength of our people, the sense of community, the professionalism of our staff, and then those offerings that have to be in place. When asked to identify the challenges, the negatives, this was a little longer. This list was a little longer than the positives, but that's okay. The good, the bad, and the ugly we wanted to hear, because we can't address these things until we name them and we voice them and we put them out there in the sunlight. So one of the concerns was around the schools being properly and sufficiently resourced. Teachers, parents, residents want to see the schools return to their former luster, celebrate the staff that we have and the offerings that they have. But when they talk about concerns for the district, they say it's got to be properly resourced. And when they talk about resourcing, we're not just talking about financial or money. But we are talking about funding, but we're also talking about having the technology in place that we need. We're talking about having the staff that we need. Staff as it impacts class size, for example. If we went to class limits and were able to eliminate staff, or had to eliminate staff, that's an example of us not being resourced with the bodies that we need to be able to keep those class size numbers low. When Ms. Griffin talked about, the 2 to 4 times a week the teachers in her building are able to meet and collaborate, that's only because other staff are available to be with the kids. Somebody's watching those students. We don't have the staff to be able to do what you described. So that's a matter of resourcing. Also, staffing refers to curricular materials. When I came in and we had no reading program for the elementary, that's a matter of resourcing, right? Teachers didn't have the tools that they needed to meet the needs of students, so we didn't have current curricular materials, and in a lot of places, we're still lacking, and frankly, the budget requests that we're making are attempting to close those gaps. But we were fortunate enough to be able to bring in an elementary reading series, the Wonders program. We do have the Envisions program in place. We have other needs, though, and we have to be adequately resourced that way. We have to give our teachers and students the ammunition that they need to get the job done. We've had in recent years numerous staff reductions due to lack of resourcing, particularly of support staff. The issue of numerous RIFs, reductions in force around instructional aides and TAs last year in the lower grades and in special education are resource driven. If we don't have the resources and we can't afford to put those bodies in, they're not going to be there. So we need to adequately resource our district and our classrooms, our buildings. Another issue that parents raised, a common issue, is our matters, and I should say this about these issues, these concerns. I just wanted to say this. These are folks' perceptions that these are concerns, that these are problems. And what I say very often is that whether they're perceptions or their realities, one way or another, we need to address them, right? If there are realities that we can address, we need to do that. If there are perceptions that are just based on old information or faulty information or rumor and innuendo, we need to work to combat that and turn that around. One way or another, we need to address these. So many parents, so that's not to dismiss any of these concerns, it's just to say that if they're perception-driven, we have to address that as well. Many parents raise concerns involving matters of school safety and the perceived lack of consistency demonstrated by the schools in terms of enforcement of policies. We need to codify what we do. The attendance work that I talked about earlier is one example of how we're going to do that, but also how do we handle misbehaviors in our schools? We need to get tighter around how we do that. Not tighter in terms of being like this with students, but tighter in terms of if these are the policies in place, let's enforce them with fidelity. Let's carry them out, and let's agree that in every building and in every classroom, it's going to be handled the same way. This was highlighted in particular with regards to the issue of bullying. Parents are concerned about bullying. Every district in the Commonwealth, parents are concerned about bullying. Another concern was with respect to instructional matters. Many parents and some residents raised concerns about the lack of quote-unquote challenge or rigor. Number of parents and residents say we need to hold our students to higher standards. We need to give them exposure to more rigorous content. We're not going to be able to do that without co-teaching models in place. We also do that by improving the instruction in all our classrooms, but continuing to offer more accelerated classrooms, more AP courses, more courses in the arts, and those kinds of things. Around instruction, some parents also raised concerns around the Common Core state standards and quote-unquote teaching to the test. Parents talked about that. A number of parents referenced the number of students opting out of Oxford High School. This is what I refer to as the challenge of choice. Parents and students deciding that they have better options available to them than Oxford High School and going elsewhere, and cite the lack of rigor and perceptions around Oxford High School's inability to adequately prepare students for success in college as a strong contributor to this quote-unquote opting out. So parents feel that if the rigor were here, if we were offering more high-level courses, a number of those students who opt out of district and attend elsewhere would be less likely to do so and would stay with us. A common theme heard from parents and residents was of the need to raise the expectations for academic achievement and to expand the higher level offerings at OHS and to bring back courses such as art and foreign language at the middle level. A number of parents also cited concerns with communication. Communication is a big theme, whether we're talking about teachers, parents, administrators, what have you. Communication within the district just has to continually be strengthened. Communication at all levels within and throughout the district. By this, they meant school to home, in part being addressed hopefully through our social media events and trying to reach out and do those kinds of things. School to student, and even between administrators and teaching staff. Parents suggest that this lack of clear, consistent communication negatively impacts staff morale, parent engagement, and ultimately student outcomes. The site visit of 2013, the most glaring thing in there was that the district had even failed to communicate what its mission was and its vision. We are trying to turn that around and be really crystal clear about what we're trying to accomplish and the student we want to graduate, and we talk about it all the time, and we drive it home all the time, and we're looking to build this understanding of what it is we're trying to accomplish and how we're going to get there. We need to do a better job of continually reaching out to our parents, though, and engaging in them in this process. And if you think back to the AIP, that first objective is all about shared responsibility for student outcomes. So we're trying to do that as well. Finally, a great many parents voiced negative perceptions regarding Oxford Middle School. They spoke of feeling, quote-unquote, unwelcome, and in some cases, quote-unquote, unsupported by the school. They also complained about the offerings available at OMS, feeling that they fail to challenge students, do not include art and foreign language study, and provide access to other advanced level content. I was greatly bothered when I came in and learned that we don't offer art at the middle school. I don't know how that happened prior to my getting here, but one of the charges of the middle school redesign team as they rework that schedule is to make sure that art is back in the schedule. I think it's unconscionable that it ever came out, but we are looking to put art back into the day. We are looking to strengthen the enrichment opportunities at the middle school. We are looking to strengthen the music programs over there and provide all students access to high-level rigorous content at the middle school going forward. So a lot of the discussions around reworking the schedule for next year are to ensure that that happens. As we discussed before, there were only a few things that I was adamant about had to be in this new schedule. Access for all students to rigorous content in the 4 major content areas: English, mathematics, social studies, and science, and STEM is our 5th one in grades 7 and 8. The time built into the day so that all students receive the interventions that they need to be successful and the enrichment activities and supports that they're ready for. Time for common planning time for professional practice amongst educators, and that we get the art and those things back into the day. So we're really looking to strengthen that. When asked to offer their thoughts about how we might turn around these challenges, address these challenges, improve the district, parents had a number of ideas. Parents spoke most frequently of the need for greater communication from the district, building administrators, and teachers, as well as for greater parent and community engagement and support of student learning and broad shared ownership for student success. Bless you.
Thank you.
Also, as a recommendation from parents and residents, they described what they see as the critical roles of consistent and strong leadership, open two-way communication, and transparency needed to build confidence in the district as responsible stewards of their investment in the Oxford Public Schools. Parents and residents voiced overwhelmingly the willingness to support the schools, to help us with resourcing, to advocate for additional funding, but only when they can trust that we are responsible stewards of their investment, only when they can trust that they're going to get a sizable return on that investment. To that end, I'll just, as an aside, say that since the summer, our budgets are now posted broadly. They're on our websites. We've tried to be as transparent and make those accessible as they can possibly be. Through the budget process this spring, actually which started last Monday night with the workshop, we plan to address all questions, all concerns, and be as upfront as we can possibly be about what it is we're asking for and how it's going to support improved outcomes for students. We've upped our social media presence. We have established the listening tours and other things. A great many parents suggested that increasing the expectations for students and staff and leadership, coupled with expanding course offerings, particularly in the arts and technology at the secondary level, would help to address the issue of students leaving OXPS via school choice. Parents suggest ways in which they believe the district should work to ensure safe and productive schools. They also make suggestions for working collaboratively with the town, the state, and the community to acquire needed funding. They also suggest ways in which the district can strengthen its own credibility so as to support greater collaboration. One of the issues that comes up is the working relationship between the town and the school department as a department of the town isn't always as open and transparent and as collaborative as it necessarily could be. And so with the help of Ms. LeBlanc as our liaison between us and FinCom, and with the overtures that I've made to the Board of Selectmen, who I plan to share this report with and engage them in conversations about how we can do this work together, we're hoping to build that collaboration between the school department and the town. Suggestions for improving can be grouped into categories, and some of the headings are included in this report. But one of the biggest ones, again, was address the challenge of school choice and improve the degree to which OXPS is preparing students for college and career. We need to identify why students are leaving, raise expectations and the number of rigorous, example given AP and enriching courses, and incentivize students taking them, building greater exposure to technology and STEM at the secondary level. So some of the ways that parents recommend that we can do that: describe how academics, expectations, available courses, and other factors contribute to the numbers of students exercising school choice, choosing to attend the regional vocational or receiving homeschool. Some of their direct quotes, some of the things that came right from the survey were these: make the subjects exciting, have more AP and honors classes with enthusiastic, knowledgeable teachers. There needs to be more active learning in the classroom, especially in high school. To be competitive, more AP courses should be offered in the high school. More advanced/AP classes, earlier tracking, a gifted program. Advanced students should not be held at the same pace as the rest of the class, and for all students, homework should be serious enough to require time, building study skills and critical thinking. Another from a parent is that my concerns happen at night as I review their homework. I don't feel they are being challenged, and I'm concerned that this will create bad work habits in the future. When a challenge presents itself, I'm concerned that they will not be equipped with the tools to take on the challenge and succeed. Another simply says more arts and music. OXPS should absolutely bring back the art program at the Oxford Middle School. It will certainly help improve the experience at the middle school. My prediction is it could help students feel more secure and improve their education by motivating them to succeed and strive. In the Oxford High School, OXPS should hire another teacher for music/theater programs. It would bring the stress off the current teacher in this position and potentially make it easier for these teachers to extend the program to more students. This is a matter of resourcing, right? There are also a mass of students that were disappointed to find out how difficult it was to enter the music program. One more teacher needs to be hired to the music theater program at the Oxford High School, which would absolutely improve the experience at the high school. Children need a variety of experiences to find and learn where their interests lie. At every level, there is a limited number of courses taught outside the quote-unquote basics. When my child was in the middle school, there were no languages being taught, no technology class, no band or music as an 8th grader, no art. This needs to stop. I also feel we need to bring back some special programs such, this is another parent, such as art, etc. I realize some of these may cost money, but we need to find ways to help kids love learning and express their interest in their school. Middle school is a key period in a child's life when they should be introduced to different programs and to try new activities that help develop their future. Without an art program, there is another reduction in a creative outlet that is extremely important in a child's life. For every student who leaves OXPS for school choice, we lose the tax revenue of at least 3 households to whatever town that family chooses. Why does Oxford let this happen? A strong fight needs to be made for our students because by improving our schools, we improve the entire town. And that's from a parent and resident. Next section, I'll go through rather quickly, but no, I won't go through it quickly because the folks took the time to take this survey. I owed it to them to get this analysis done and share these and then begin the conversation about how we're going to address these. So a small number of parents raised concerns regarding what they see as a flawed, quote-unquote, Common Core curriculum and offer the following suggestions. There's a lot of concern in the community about the curriculum, Common Core, which is not a curriculum, but the Common Core state standards, which we'll address in a couple of Wednesdays. Parents said, get rid of the Common Core. I've been researching it, and it's all crazy. I, along with a lot of others, will likely be pulling our children out of homeschool and to homeschool them within the next 2 years. Next one, Common Core needs to change. It is ridiculous that you do not allow more advanced kids to be more advanced. You cannot hold down kids that need to be challenged. Advanced kids are not allowed to grow because they are trying to standardize every child, and it's absurd. I'll just remind you that sometimes things are based on fact, and sometimes they're based on perception. Sometimes perceptions are faulty, and we have to address both. Get rid of the Common Core and PARCC testing, which I know will be coming. Have you really read what we are teaching our children now than what we were teaching them in the 80s? This person says that in the 80s, they knew their 50 states and capitals by 5th grade. I could write on cursive in 3rd or 4th grade, and I knew the real Bill of Rights, not what the Common Core is teaching our kids. Stop with this testing. All kids are not the same and learn differently. Common Core doesn't really address the Bill of Rights, but again, we'll talk about that in a couple of Wednesdays. In order to improve our district, parents see the recruitment, training, and retention of the best possible teachers and leaders as key to OXPS students achieving greater success and improving the districts. They see high expectations and accountability as important drivers. Parents continually talked about we need to attract, hire, support, and retain the best possible teachers that we can. And I have said that repeatedly since coming on board in July as well. They talk about the need to do that through supporting the EdEval system with Fidelity, have in-services or meetings with teachers to help them remember why they are here, why they go into teaching in the first place. Emphasize realistic assessment of where the system is today and resist hard the temptation in thinking that simply doing the best you can means you've done enough in absence of any evidence of progress for administrators, teachers, and students. Now that comes from a parent, and to me, directly connects to our conversations about data-driven instruction as well. Parents ask that we support students and their families to make post-secondary education a viable option. A number of parents raised concerns with the levels of support being provided by OHS and its guidance department in terms of the provision of support for students and families interested in applying to colleges and trade schools. As parents ourselves whose kids, well, maybe I'm the only one that old at this table, but of students who are going through the college application process, if you don't know that process, it's a bear. It's intimidating. You don't even know where to start. And then there's the financial aid part. It's something that we could absolutely do a better job in supporting parents and students in that process. And that work is happening and is being reflected, frankly, in some of the budget requests that are being made for the guidance department at the high school. One comment from this section, and again, the full report will be released, but one comment is that a suggestion is to hire a high school advisor needed to help students navigate the college search and trade school search. Many students will be the first generation to go to college, and parents don't know how to help them. And I believe that that's a fair statement. Strengthen school safety by being consistent with handling student discipline, actively addressing issues of bullying, and developing practice and protocols for dealing with emergency scenarios. So one statement from there was that this is a parent speaking, from my perspective, I think there needs to be more discipline at the middle and high school level. The students need to realize that school is not always a social event, and the teachers are not there to be friends, they are there to do a job. Administration needs to be more accountable for what is going on in their buildings. I also think that the dress code needs to be enforced. If that code is enforced, I think you will see a change in the students' behavior. Communication. Strengthen systems of communication between the schools, home, and the larger community, and actively promote the good work and accomplishments of the OXPS in order to counter negative press and raise the district's positive profile. If the news media, this is a parent speaking, would be proactive rather than a negative force at our disposal within the Oxford community, once again involving students as well as staff and administrators, the citizens of our community could be more in tune with our programs and events and have more of an understanding of the direction we are headed in as an educational system. The school should reach out to the community more, invite the community in to see what is happening, encourage students to bring ideas on how to help, volunteer, and showcase the schools. Put the schools out there. Communication, communication, communication. And finally, on that topic, transparency and open communication. Transparency and open communication will be how you will gain back trust within the community. Parents speak of the need on the part of schools to creatively find opportunities for parents and other community members to engage in school efforts. A number describe a willingness to volunteer and or advocate for the schools, but also a lack of awareness of both the schools, the district's priorities and needs, and how best to support them. Some speak of the desire to assist in their schools, but the challenge of doing so during the workday. We need to get more creative about providing opportunities for parents to volunteer and engage in school improvement efforts outside of the 9 to 5, apparently. Some speak of the desire to assist in their child's school, but the challenges of doing so during the workday. Others indicate that they feel ill-prepared to assist their children with schoolwork that may look different than that they themselves experienced when students. Number of parents say they want to help their students be successful, want to help them with their homework. They don't understand the homework because it doesn't look like the kind of math that they did when they were students. We hear that all the time. We need to do more outreach from the schools in terms of supporting students, supporting teachers who want to, supporting parents who want to support their students. I apologize, I'm getting tired. I believe that senior citizens in our community could feel welcome and invited by the schools to more school functions and more extensive use of various news media, as well as creating more volunteer opportunities within our towns for students to interact with seniors in the community. Those seniors would be more apt to vote in favor of educational support ballot questions. The understanding of the homework for the parents can be difficult. I think parents could have a couple of evenings where they could be instructed on how we can help our children with their academics, homework, projects, etc. throughout the year. The new math concepts are extremely confusing, and without the proper instruction, we cannot instruct the children correctly on how to do the math correctly. Parents are asking for help. Parents are asking that we carefully consider all positions and expenditures so as to ensure that the OXPS is functioning as efficiently as it possibly can be. We've talked about this since the summer as well. Comments include that while I believe the school needs to be more, I believe that schools need to be more transparent of its needs and wants. I don't believe that many parents know what the financial shortfalls are and what they can do to help. Another comment is, I think you really need to get a handle on the budget and figure things out. I'm also sick of going to school committee meetings and everything is shot down, and the town meetings as well. Understand where the money is being spent and how we can better use the money that is provided. They recommend that we advocate for adequate funding of the schools at the community, town, and state levels, and aggressively seek additional funding opportunities. Many parents describe a lack of adequate funding, regardless of the source, whether it's town money, state money, grant money, as a serious impediment to improvement. As described above, many also express a willingness to support the schools, but only when they feel confident that their investments are being used efficiently and to maximum effect by competent, transparent school leaders. Comment in here was really hoping that the town will put forth and pass a Prop 2.5 override. Not optimistic that the townspeople will make the investment, but we have to try. Another comment is clearly OXPS needs more money from the town to bring our schools to the proper level of staff, funding, and technology. On the budget issue, we need to push the state to update their outdated formulas for allocations of funding. We have to get appropriate funding to service the students that we have, and so that they can have smaller class sizes. The OXPS needs to address the financial challenges by aggressively seeking grants that are available to school districts, which other towns seem to be receiving. Perhaps the OXPS needs a grants man to be dedicated to that task. Several times I've heard that there is no money for new programs. This is an unacceptable excuse. Many districts that have limited resources apply for grants. Would it be cost-effective to hire a grant writer? It seems the town may never approve an override. Parents also highlight the need to improve and strengthen the relationship between the schools as a department of the town and the town itself. It's believed that in doing so, the schools and the town will better understand the priorities and realities of each and will be positioned to work for the betterment of the collective. Comments include, we need to build better relationships that have fallen between the town government and the school department. Brainstorm together, but be unified. We need to develop unity for the district, maybe a community educational forum or an evening as such, inviting town officials to school-related functions for them to see what goes on in the schools and also see what the needs of the district could be. Communication between the townspeople and the school needs to be continuous, not just when funding is needed. The establishment of a liaison between the OXPS and the Oxford Finance Committee is a truly positive move. There must be more cohesiveness between the school system and the town government. We need to create partnerships within the town so that when we ask for more funding, we have the trust and support of the town. And then finally, the last question was, again, like I said, it's kind of a free swim question where people can just make any kind of comments that they would like, raise any concerns. The final of the 5 survey questions provided the opportunity for respondents to make any additional comments, raise any concerns, and/or suggest ideas. As did other respondent groups, parents and residents expressed gratitude for the opportunity to express their opinions and have them heard. They also used this final question to reiterate their request for improved communication. So comments in here include, asking for parent feedback is a great start. Next was, I am so thrilled that the administration is asking for input. I certainly don't have all the answers, but knowing that you're interested in what residents perceive the issues to be, that goes a long way. Thank you for showing true interest in improving our school system. Please communicate with us often and in as many ways as you can. Ask for our help where you need it. Thank you for the opportunity to speak up. I haven't had an opportunity, and I believe very strongly in the potential of this town to be so much more. Thank you for the survey. It makes us believe you care about our opinions, long overdue and actually requested several times. Finally, respondents spoke with great optimism of their belief that the Oxford Public Schools has tremendous potential for success. They also drove home the strong belief that a strong shared commitment and responsibility, collaborative and inclusive leadership will be needed to realize that potential. Comments include, I am excited about the changes I've already seen this year, and I am looking forward to what is coming. The school district was a very good system and well thought of. It can be again. Oxford can be on top again. We just need the right leadership to do it. The system has great potential, just needs the right team to unlock it. Leadership is crucial. The foundation exists, but without proper leadership, it will crumble. This discussion gives me hope that we are headed in the right direction. And finally, and these are not all of the comments, obviously. These are just representative of some of the themes. But this last one really sums things up, I think. A great education can be had here in Oxford, but things need to change. We need the parents and the town to get on board to help us. We have seen it cannot be done without them. Oxford can and will be a better school system. We have not had an educational leader at the helm for quite a number of years. We want to increase the values of education in Oxford. We need to look at all aspects of administration and to make sure they are doing the most complete job they are paid to do. Going above and beyond in the workplace pays off great at the end. There are lots of support staff in non-teaching or administrative roles that work tirelessly for not extra pay, but for pride. Let's get pride back in Oxford. And these are the comments of our residents and parents and the major themes around which those comments fell. So I would invite any questions or comments from the committee or further discussion.
Thank you. It was a lot of material, and I'm glad that you had an opportunity to put it together and do some analysis. And the overwhelming feeling that I had when I read this was that we're doing these things. We're moving in the right direction, and it's going to take time, but we'll get there. So they called for a strong educational leader, and I think that we have it. So thank you, Dr. Garceau.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate the fact that you took your time to survey the community and, ask difficult questions and really look into, hearing the voices of the community. And it means a lot to me personally as a member of the community. I'm sure many other people feel the same way, so thank you.
And just to echo in as well, the surveys are a great tool. They're a great tool to start, to help to identify the problems, identify what you have, and in Dr. Garceau's case, to come in and say, what is the perception out there in the community? And education is so much the perception of what we have. Now, as you see with the work that we're doing tonight, the work moving forward, where we change what people's perception and then we change that into what their vision in reality is. And I think we can get to the next step of this at the next level, but it all starts with here in the commitment of so many the stakeholders to take action, of different plans that we saw, to bring it together in a unified vision. And we'll get there. Thank you, Dr. Garceau, and thank you for your hard work on that.
Thank you.
Next item for business is, we have with us in our packet the draft goals for superintendent's evaluation. And Dr. Garceau has put together 3 goals. Is that correct?
And I'm actually struggling to put my hands on it right now. Did I borrow somebody's?
4 goals, I'm sorry, 4 goals.
So as the committee will recall, we held a informational workshop at the beginning of December regarding the newly promulgated evaluation system, which we are implementing for teachers, aides, principals. It's really the same Massachusetts educator evaluation and support system for everybody in the district on up through the superintendent. So at that workshop, what we did was we talked about how the cyclical nature of the model as it is supports ongoing goal setting, action planning, meeting of benchmarks, formative and summative evaluations, self-assessment, and then going through that cycle again and going through there. We also spent time going through the rubric language for professional practice expectations for superintendents that talk about the major functions of any superintendency, those around instructional leadership, around organizations and operations, around fiscal management, and around community engagement. And we talked about the levels of proficiency and what they look like in meeting each of those standards. So with that said, I had told the committee at that time that I would propose draft goals for my evaluation for this year, recognizing that we're nearly halfway through the year, but we did get a bit of a late start on it. And there was guidance from the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed around establishment of goals, particularly for first-year superintendents. Somebody coming into the district really shouldn't be in the position of coming in and changing everything and setting a whole new direction. So the first goal really was about, the first proposed goal is about effective entry and direction setting. And in order to successfully enter the district, I have to do a lot of data collection, and we just spent a great deal of time talking about that, right? So between what's been going on in the district, that site visit that I'm always referencing, our MCAS data, the survey data, the communications that I've had with community members and the teachers and my interactions with the OEA and the selectmen and all of that is all around gathering information about what's the state of the state and where are we prepared to go. So the first goal really is to put us in a position whereby within the next 6 weeks or so, we have gathered all that information from key stakeholders about the district's most critical needs, the strategies and goals that will address them most effectively, and the measures that will be used to assess their progress. Meeting that goal will bring a level of transparency and credibility to the budget process. It'll also result in the creation of a new accelerated improvement plan, right? As we go, we're wrapping up this previous plan. Now we're taking stock of where we are. I've gathered all my information. I'll continue to share that out, and all of those will feed into the develop of a new improvement plan that will kick in this spring. The second goal would be around managing the maintaining the transition, the momentum, I should say, during the transition. Again, coming in, you don't want to dramatically switch horses midstream. We have to continue the work that had been ongoing, but also continue to direct improvements. So it's about keeping the district moving forward during this year's transition and leadership by working with principals and other district leaders to ensure that meaningful progress is made on critical district and school goals. So part of what I'm doing in working with the leadership team and with the principals is to get our thinking straight around what our priorities are and how we're going to achieve those, how we're going to manage change, and that is a large part of what I've been doing since I came on July 1. The third goal is to build my own professional leadership capacity by participating in the school superintendent induction program, which is ongoing. The district was kind enough to enroll me in that program as one of the conditions of my hire, and I attend those meetings monthly. I have a coach in place. I have a network of colleagues that I work with to build my own professional capacity for leadership. And then the final goal, the fourth one, is critical to us, and it's about ensuring the fair, effective implementation of the educator evaluation system. Again, we kind of caught some heat in the paper and in the press and from the state for not necessarily implementing educator evaluation with fidelity. Our administrators were not always evaluated. A number of our teachers were not. We had some issues around that created some concern in the OEA. I've worked to really develop a collaborative relationship with the OEA leadership, and we are committed to using the EdEval tool to continually, again, get at our second circle by improving educator effectiveness and building leadership capacity. And as I say all the time about the EdEval tool, it's a very, very powerful tool for improving practice and ultimately outcomes for kids, but it's a lever, it's not a hammer. We're not using it to beat people up. We're using it to engage in conversations about how we continually improve our practice and coach folks up to being the best that they can possibly be every day in every classroom for every student. Those are the 4 goals that I propose. I'd be happy to engage in conversation about those. If they meet the committee's approval, I would next then flesh out the action steps and the timelines for that and be able to present that to you at a subsequent meeting.
Dr. Garso. Okay, at this point, I entertain a motion to accept these 4 proposed goals by Dr. Garso for this academic season.
So moved.
Moved and seconded, discussion. Being none, thank you, Dr. Garso. I think that with the guidance that you had received, you put together some action steps that they look to be very formidable goals.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and they're accepted. Very good. Okay. Moving the agenda.
Look, now it's you.
Okay, that we did last week, open up our budget season with a draft of the FY 2016 budget. And I know at the hour, I'll just open it briefly to members if they have any discussion points or points of emphasis they'd like to move forward to the superintendent on this budget. And the budget is a working process that you said to be going out to town hall tomorrow?
If I may. Yes. Per our discussions of last week, I did give the committee an updated budget summary page, a central administration section, and coffee sections, adding in the contingencies that we talked about, both for salary and normal operating contingencies. So the plan would be to present this to the town tomorrow. We would post it on our website tomorrow, as is, with the complete detail, and hold further discussions with the plan of having a formal public presentation on the 26th, so our next meeting.
Correct. Okay. And again, any board members, any questions, concerns, points of emphasis in the budget, please feel free to engage in those either with myself or one other member. That remember that in the open meeting laws, that 3 of us can't meet for coffee and want to hash out the budget.
Right.
So we have to respect the open meeting laws. It's always good to go through the chair and to Dr. Garso or Mr. Matthew on points of emphasis that you're looking for, and also clarifications as well, too.
If I may, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
this budget is the culmination of many months of work, really looking at the OXPS budget line by line. Mr. Spitz and I, as well as Ms. LeBlanc and folks on the town side, in particular, Donna Folio, and representatives from FinCom, we've been meeting with them since the summer and really looking at line by line our budget, talking about things that we can do to improve. And I believe that this is probably one of the earliest iterations we've had of a draft budget, and it's certainly going to be one of the earliest times in which it will be presented to the town finance department. So I'm really excited that at the progress that we've made. In addition to the hearing on the 26th, I've called the finance subcommittee of the school committee. We'll be having a meeting on the 28th as well. And if there are any members of the community who wish to participate in that, please let Chair Coonan know as soon as possible, and we can have them formally inducted. However, those are public meetings as well and will be posted. So thank you.
Thank you. Very good. Anything else? No. Okay, so we'll hold that, and then we're all set to move forward. Very good. Correspondence, I have none. Field trips, retirements, all the way down here. And moving forward, subcommittees. Mr. Batard, an update from your Transportation Committee.
Yes, thank you. I'll try and be brief because it's getting late. But the Transportation Subcommittee first met in December, and then we, due to the holidays, took a break and plan to meet every Tuesday in January until we get the job done. So ultimately, the responsibility of the community is to, of the committee is to recommend policies to the school committee for consideration, in particular as we negotiate or put a new bus contract out to bid. So last Tuesday's meeting was incredibly informative, or productive rather. Our business manager, Mr. Matthew, is planning on meeting with Officer Picard to review street listings and look for potential bus stop groupings, because some members felt that information could be helpful as we move forward with the bid. The subcommittee is also recommending a policy stating that buses will have assigned seats by grade level, with the youngest grade level students on the front of the bus, and then the next grade level, and so on. That would address concerns regarding bullying, safety, et cetera, et cetera. We'd also, there's some other things regarding the late buses and the span of students, the age span of students riding those late buses. We're talking 5th graders up to 12th on the same bus. So we're investigating possible solutions to fix that. Part of this that we're doing is data analysis. We want to know, see if we can find out the number of students per day per school that ride the late bus. We understand that some buses have monitors, some don't. Some are mandated by an IEP. Some members felt that there were some buses that had monitors that weren't mandated by an IEP, so we wanted to gather some information on that. We also wanted to consider the possibility of a direct route bus for areas that had a large number of students. I forget what we called it, the express bus. I think we've done things like that in the future. And then lastly, the committee is looking at the possibility of recommending that the school committee consider a transportation fee. Several of our neighboring communities have instituted transportation fees. It's not, just to reiterate, this is the committee, the subcommittee is still investigating whether or not to recommend this to the school committee, at which point the school committee would then need to debate it and decide what they'd want to do. So, but given where we are in our current fiscal position and the outcomes that parents want for the students riding the bus, this may be a necessary step in order to facilitate those those outcomes. We want to make sure that the kids are safe, that they get to school within a reasonable time, and that their safety is paramount. So, all things that we're considering, and we're meeting again tomorrow night.
Thank you for the update, Mr. Bitar.
Thank you.
On my subcommittee on memorials and remembrances, planning our first meeting for the latter half of February, and I do have a new member to be voted in this evening, and I'd like to add the name of Erin Sullivan. Erin was a valedictorian of last year's class, and she's currently a freshman at Holy Cross, and she's looking to come back and get involved in Oxford Public Schools, so she thought it'd be a good way to learn a little bit more about the work that we do and to serve on a subcommittee. So she'll be sitting on the Memorial and Remembrance Subcommittee, and so I would so move the name of Erin Sullivan to that.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and Erin Sullivan is on that. Thank you, Erin. Okay. Dr. Garceau, your report, please.
Well, by way of my report, last Wednesday night, Oxford High School hosted a very successful and well-attended showcase for students and families considering their options for high school. The showcase provided an opportunity for those in attendance to hear about the many high-quality course offerings at OHS, witness students' performances by our theater, music, and NJROTC groups, and also to meet many of the school's teachers and the administration. Any families who are unable to attend or who have questions of any kind regarding OHS are strongly encouraged to contact Principal Tebow. He will be happy to address any issues that you may have or direct you to those who can best assist you. The Common Core State Standards Forum Due to a scheduling conflict with the Special Education Parent Advisory Council's monthly meeting, which is this Wednesday, the forum on the Common Core state standards has been rescheduled to Wednesday night, January 21st. The forum will be held in the auditorium of OHS beginning at 6:30. Childcare will be provided courtesy of members of the NJROTC and the National Honor Society. Also, the next stop on the superintendent's listening tour will be on Saturday morning, January 24th. It's a Saturday morning, the 24th, beginning at 9:30 in the conference room on the second floor of the community center at 4 Maple Road. Again, there is really no agenda other than to make myself available to hear and answer questions and to give parents or residents access to me in any way that I can. A word on closings, delays, and cancellations. Whenever inclement weather is present or on its way, superintendents bear the responsibility for determining, after considering all factors including road conditions, air temperature, forecasts, traffic cycles, and others, deciding whether it is in the best interest of the students and staff safety to open schools as regularly scheduled, to delay opening school for some time, to dismiss earlier than normal, or to cancel school for the day. Last week, we had 2 such situations, one due to the extreme cold in the region on Thursday, and the other because of the snow on Friday morning. In both cases, numerous factors were considered, and superintendents throughout the region compared notes and supported each other's decision-making processes. On Thursday, the cold day, we opened as normal, and on Friday, despite the desperate pleas of the students at OHS, we dismissed at normal time. Any announcements regarding delays or cancellations will always be made as early as possible, including the night before where appropriate. If we can determine on a Tuesday night that it's going to be snowing like a dickens on Wednesday and we're going to cancel, we're not going to do it Wednesday morning. We'll try and make that announcement on a Tuesday night. We do it as early and as quickly as we possibly can. As we learned last month, the district's all-call system can at times let us down. It was overwhelmed. On the day that we had those icy roads, a number of districts who use the same system had the same problem that we did. The calls did not go out. As a result, parents and students looking for the latest information should know the superintendent's Twitter feed, as well as the district's web page and Facebook page, will all carry any such announcements. Additionally, all local news outlets are notified and post the delays and cancellations. Parents are encouraged to visit the websites of our local television stations, where in most instances they can sign up to receive text alerts of any announcements. If you go to WBZ.com or any of the local stations, there are systems where parents can just sign up and they'll receive a text alert as soon as the station receives the notice from us. So my point is that there just needs to be a backup. If our phone system fails us, folks need to know. With regards to last Thursday, again, the cold day, of those in the southern Worcester County, I can report that 2 districts closed. Half of the rest of us had a 2-hour delay, and the other half opened as usual. Not surprisingly, 100% of the superintendents were criticized for the decisions. No decisions will be universally popular, but as stated earlier, all decisions will be made in the interest of the safety of our students and staff. And then finally, I'd just like to thank Kyle and Joe Zella for their updates to the school committee, and I'd like to thank Joe's student council advisor, Ms. Belhumer, who was here this evening to support him, and his math teacher, Ms. Prunier, for coming out to support him in that. Joe did an outstanding job. Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
May I ask a question of Dr. Garceau?
Yes, go ahead.
Obviously, Thursday's decision was, like, as you said, you weren't going to win or please everybody no matter what your decision. But just for my edification and those watching and the rest of the committee, what was your thought process behind keeping, not canceling or not delaying, in particular, safety of the walkers?
So, in order to try and mitigate the safety issue of walkers, I contacted Durham Bus Company on the Wednesday, and we made arrangements that the drivers, if they saw any walkers on the road, would stop and pick those students up, whether they were normal bus students or not. So we wanted to, and when I got up here early Thursday morning, I drove up and down Main Street looking for kids that were out, and I didn't see any. But I made the arrangements that bus drivers would pick up any of those students. On Wednesday, the day before the cold day, I also made clear to all our principals that they were to ensure that all entranceways doors were unlocked as early as possible. So principals voluntarily came in early on that morning, opened up the buildings. Additionally, our custodial staff was outstanding in coming in early to fire up the heating systems to make sure that they were, one, that they were working, and two, it takes a couple of hours to warm the building up. So they came in early to get onto that. So we had a lot of collaboration and cooperation from our staff, and we were extremely proud of the way they pitched in to do that. Considerations regarding any cancellations are many. A 2-hour delay or a canceling of school, for many parents, throws them into a whirlwind of childcare issues, right? They have to work, and suddenly there's no school. What do I do with my children? And the daycares are closing as well. I have to consider that. I have to consider that for some parents, a 2-hour delay is even more disruptive than canceling for the day. We have to consider that if the closing of school, if we've got little children at home and siblings aren't there, who's going to be there to keep an eye on them, whether it's high school siblings or whatnot. So we can't really think, well, we'll close this school and we'll leave this one open. We have to make those determinations. There's also the issue, and I responded to a parent who emailed me. I had one email and one phone call about this. That frankly, when it comes to safety, and we're talking about freezing temperatures, dangerously cold temperatures, unfortunately, some of our kids are safer being in school than they would be at home. That has to be considered. And so while students had to leave their house and go to the bus, if that's how they get to school, for the most part, we do a lot of door-to-door at the elementaries. And so it was a matter of them just looking out the window and just running from the house to the bus, getting on the bus, and then being in a nice warm school with a nice warm lunch. And at the secondary level, where we do tend to have more walkers, again, we were on the lookout for them. Principals and staff were also reminded to keep an eye out the windows and on the street, and usher those kids in as quickly as we could. So we did everything we could to ensure that it wasn't an overly dangerous situation. But also on Thursday, frankly, the forecast didn't come true. We were expecting 30 to 40 mile an hour gusts, and when I left my house, the wind speed was 0. So it was cold, but it wasn't really any more uncomfortable than Wednesday had been, and frankly, wasn't any worse than Friday morning was. So there are a lot of things that we consider.
Yeah, I mean, I recall that the actual air temperature was lower on Thursday, and to be upfront here, I don't have strong feelings one way or another as to whether or not we closed. My primary concern was the fact that there are some students that are required to walk a ways to the bus stop, and I know that that's not necessarily the norm. We have a tendency of providing door-to-door, but there are some that are required to walk, and I know I happened to be in one of the buildings and heard that it was difficult for some of the buildings because teachers live in the neighboring communities, and they had to get their kids into school 2 hours late. And then, finally, being analytical as I am, I asked for some numbers, and thank you for getting these together so quickly. I asked for some attendance data around 8:30 this morning to be prepared for tonight's meeting. And I guess the ultimate, the end goal here is to see, was absenteeism a factor on Thursday, because what I was hearing was a lot of parents saying, well, I'm going to keep my kids home. And as a parent, I respect that decision. But, it appears as though the absenteeism almost tripled on Thursday versus the school year to date. So I'm wondering, was that successful? was,
Could you, tripled, could
Sure.
you provide a
the
specific?
the school year to date, when you take the average daily present minus the average daily membership, it's 90. So you have in district-wide, we have on average 90 students absent per day. When we look,
If I could, I think you're looking at percentages though, sir.
no, average daily present and then average daily membership, those are numbers. Those are just straight integers.
Excuse me, does everyone have a copy of that? I don't think I...
Average daily present is the number of students there. The average daily attendance is in the low 90s. So for example, grade 5 at the middle school, the average daily attendance is 90.7.
That's percentage, I
Right.
believe. Yeah.
Yes.
What I'm looking at is the average daily present, which is a number, and then the average daily membership, which is also a number. So when I take and do some simple addition there, I see that among the district, we on average have 90 students absent on average.
Oh, okay. So
When
you're
we-
looking district-wide, I see what
Right.
you're saying.
When we look just on January 8th, we had 265 absences. So that, to me, is an indicator of the fact that a lot of parents kept their kids at home. Now, I think we need to keep in mind the fact that January is a particularly, probably a high absenteeism month, given illnesses. And that's why I asked for the week as well, but upon further reflection, the week's averages are likely highly skewed by Thursday's numbers as well. So I think that the school year-to-date numbers are probably a good indicator. So given that, I just wonder how much effective classroom time actually occurred, when you had triple the absenteeism. And
Well, I can tell you for those students that attended, 100% of that time was actual instructional time.
right, but how much time do we have to spend now making up that for those students that?
If these decisions are going to be made at the superintendent's level around how we delay the opening or canceling of school. In all honesty, parents have to bear some responsibility for this as well. And I'll say this in a couple of ways. If we have parents that are that adamant that the wrong decision was made by the superintendent, and by making that decision, he's putting my child in jeopardy, that parent absolutely should be keeping their kid home. They should say, that superintendent doesn't know what he's talking about, it's completely unsafe, I'm going to keep my student home. Rather than, frankly, go to social media and say that the superintendent's putting their kids in danger, but I sent them anyway. That makes no sense to me, right? Also, parents have not all, but parents always have the option of seeking other transportation modes. So whether they drove their children to school that day themselves, or they carpooled with neighbors, or they found some other way to get their child to school other than riding the bus, that's always an available option. So school was in session. It was the expectation that students would be here in school. But again, and as you said, if parents feel that it's in the greater best interest of their child's safety to have that student remain at home, that's going to be their call.
And I'm not debating that with you, Dr.
Yeah,
Garceau.
right.
I just think that every decision that we make, we have the opportunity to look back on it.
Oh, absolutely.
And weigh the pros and cons. And
Absolutely.
I've heard from parents who said, good for him making those kids go to school. I never got a cold day when we didn't call off school because it was cold. But then I also look at the other, there's two points of view here to consider. And, just looking at how many students were absent, I'm just internally wondering.
We will have parents who will keep their children home in the spring because it's too hot. I can't support that.
Also, let me just chime in as well, too, is we're getting to the testing season. MCAS is coming up. That time for those 88% or whoever was in school is much more worthwhile today than in June, when it's 90 degrees out. And they're waiting on the last day of school. So, and I'm sure it was bell to bell and a productive session that we should see results from this, from those that went. Very good.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. All set?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Matthew.
Just two things for the committee, and I'll actually send you a memo on each one. But quickly, there was an issue of the water temperature at the two elementary schools in the kitchen. It was brought forward last spring. Mr. Dones had a company out, a plumbing company out over the summer to try to address this. The issues continued into the fall. Mr. Dones brought back the same company to either rectify the work that wasn't done correctly or to re-examine the issue. That work was done and completed over the December break, but what I'd like to do is get some details in terms of what Mr. Dones has reported to me about the water temperatures themselves, and I'll send that memo to the school committee. The other thing is over at the middle school. The community may be aware that we did a major renovation of the HVAC over the summer. During the very cold day of Thursday, unfortunately, we had a number of coils actually freeze on some of the rooftop units. The project manager and the construction folks met here last Thursday. We have a meeting scheduled for Wednesday at 1 or 1:30 in the afternoon, where we're going to go over to try to figure out exactly what happened, because these units were commissioned, and they do have a test to simulate, I'm not sure, a 0-degree temperature on a roof where wind may be lowering the temperature, but certainly to get close to that. And everything was fine in those testing. However, in the real-world test, they failed miserably. So again, once I have some additional information after Wednesday, I'll send the committee a memo.
Mr. Matthew, did that cause the sprinklers to go off as well as a?
No, I don't know if it caused the sprinklers to go off, but there certainly was water that penetrated into some of the classrooms and caused some damage to the sprinkler system itself, the fire smoke detectors. The companies know that they're responsible. They were there fixing it already. They'll be picking up the costs for those sorts of things, as well as actually probably for the project management time that's required to deal with this issue.
Thank you.
I know that there was some emails going back and forth regarding the notification of the committee, particularly on the water issues at Chafee and Barton. And I think the memo from the Board of Health, I didn't see that it was dated, so I don't know when they sent that. But that memo indicated that the school committee was copied. And I mean, I think that the thought process would be that if they copied the school committee, that they would provide the school committee with a copy. But just going forward, I would request that if we get memos of such, if they could be, emailed to the school committee in a timely fashion. What was probably more troubling to me, and I'm sure it was just an oversight, but was the fact that, Mr. Matthew drafted a response dated December 19th, also copying the school committee, and the first that we received of that response was in our packets. And I appreciate that Dr. Garceau had emailed us an update, including a summation of the issue. But what really troubled me was that the Board of Health indicated in the letter that there was a possibility of closing Chafee and Barton, and to me that matter really should have been brought to our attention immediately, that they were even considering such action. Did you attend the January 5th, or did they not?
No, we had a budget workshop.
We were inside.
Okay.
Now, if I may
Go
speak.
ahead, yes.
Okay, so they requested our attendance at that meeting, and the meeting, the agenda item was for 5:15, and we met at 6 o'clock on that
They
day.
actually requested my attendance.
Your attendance, but they copied us, and as a school committee member,
Or didn't.
since, or didn't,
Right.
correct, or didn't, because, yes, we do want to bring that to light. I did take time this afternoon to try to tease out what happened, because to be quite honest, hearing about the school having issues with water, and not having adequate hot water was very concerning to me. And to be quite honest, I was shocked that this was not brought to our attention, so we could share this with our, community members. I took time to call Miss Terry Fike, who was the person that originally addressed this. She's the clerical, correct me if I'm wrong, aide that basically put together the notice to inform us of this. And when I called her, she said past practice was any letters would be put in a mailbox and they'd be sent from the town office to the school department. And then that letter would be taken and copied and given to whoever was mentioned to be on the letter. One thing that I suggested was that in the future, we should be copied on these things. She also said, she apologized for the oversight. I think that wasn't something that was intentional, and I think because of new administration, to be quite honest with you, there was past practice, and I think, Mr. Matho, maybe you can speak to how things might have worked in the past with people getting notified and being copied on things and such, but whatever happened, there was a communication breakdown. And she suggested that in the future, if you supply her with our emails, that she would take the time to copy all of us and wouldn't go through that particular process like used to be done. And another thing that was mentioned is I requested that there be a copy of the minutes. I would like to have them personally from the meeting. I want to know the history. I want to know how long this issue with the school being notified of the water not being hot enough to sanitize dishes or whatever needed to be done to prep lunches has been going on. I want to know how long the children have, had only cold water or extremely hot water, which was something that she brought to my attention, running through the faucets. And from what I kind of heard from taking a quick pulse, was some teachers were advising kids to only wash their hands with cold water and not letting them touch the hot water because they were afraid they were going to be scalded. And following up more so, I guess it didn't come to the Board of Health's attention until an inspection was done and there was some discussion happening with the school department, and things weren't moving quickly enough that they had to bring it to the Board of Health and kind of threaten that the school would be closed for those two particular schools would be closed to rectify the situation. That's a grave concern to me that it came to this point, and I don't know, again, where the communication breakdown was. And I just feel it's my due diligence as a school committee member to bring this to light. I think parents should be informed when things like this are happening. And to be quite honest with you, I would have liked to know that my daughter, was washing her hands only in cold water, or or things weren't being sanitized properly for so.
Well, just as
long.
right as a parent of a student in one of those buildings,
Right.
I don't believe we were notified,
So basically, with this, we had a major communication breakdown.
Major.
Absolutely major. Part our fault. We do share a director of maintenance facilities that I was CC'd, he was informed, and he was looking into the problem. It wasn't solved where it gets to this stage. So I guess just in going forward is that when correspondence does come, is that, yes, it may get put into our mail slot, but also it can be scanned and emailed as well, too, as we're not the most diligent. We're not there every day. We're part-time, basically volunteer board. We come in and sign, maybe pick up our packets. We try and stop in once a week, once every other week. When things like that come up, if they could be scanned and emailed to us when we do a correspondence in.
And I guess where I have the gravest concern was the 2-week lag time from your letter going back to the Board of Health, and the fact that we just, because whoever did not copy us, and it certainly was Ms. Fike that should have also, followed a certain protocol, and I guess there was no protocol, so this brings this to light. But I would have loved to have been at that meeting. I would have loved to understand why X, Y, and Z happened. And I personally requested again, and hopefully she will get this to all of us, the history of what happened, what the follow-up is going to be. I heard of some inspections that are going to be occurring. And I said, I want to be assured that hot water is working properly, and I want it to be checked as frequently as it has to be to rectify this problem. And it sounds like things have been fixed, which is great, but it sounds like things were not fixed for beyond months. And I just can't imagine that.
And not to beat a dead horse here, but do we know, was in particular in the cafeteria, were prep areas and dishes and things of that nature, were they properly sanitized during this time period, or?
I guess that what was brought to light was there was a question by the health inspector that came into the school, was that the water was not getting hot enough. And if the water was run for a very long time, possibly it could get up to a high enough temperature. But since the water had to travel so far, and correct me if I'm wrong, the concern was it wasn't heating up appropriately to do what it possibly had to do to sanitize things. And then particular regions of the building would have extremely hot water to try to compensate for not getting hot enough water to where it had to go. And other areas would have cold water, and kids, were kind of being told to wash their hands without touching any hot water to prevent them from being scalded. And I mean,
Now, can you say, were we providing hand sanitizer as well to the students? And
We
that's
have
something we
hand
could-
sanitizer in virtually every classroom.
I know, it's quite a bit out there.
This,
that's the alternatives. You guys don't do it, so-
I'm rereading this letter again, and on the December 18th was the first time that I ever
Heard about
saw
it.
this or heard about the issue. And so apparently, this inspection was conducted in May of last year, and I'm sure that the results of that inspection are available, and we can work to get those to you. The 2-week turnaround time, frankly, we weren't in session, and it was we were told by Mr. Dones that the plumbers had been booked and that it was going to be addressed during the recess, and it
Right.
was. So the issue, to the best of our knowledge, has been addressed. The communication problem is a problem that we're going to work to address going forward. I mean, I've heard your explanation of, how messages that are marked CC used to get to the school committee. The town manager is CC'd here as well.
right.
And from my understanding, as long as I've been in this or any other business, when it says CC, I can assume that you also received copies.
Right.
Right.
You just didn't.
Exactly.
So we will certainly work to help Ms. Fick and get those communications out to you. And that upcoming inspection with Mr. Dones and the health inspector and the plumbing inspector and anybody else who needs to be part of it, we'll be sure that you get that report.
Thank you, sir.
And as I said, I will put together a memo detailing, what Mr. Dones and what Pat Hoganson can share and shed light on.
Yeah, because I'd love to know the history. I really want to understand, what happened to create this lack of communication in regards to the fact that I think it was brought to light so many months ago, possibly in May, and so our kids have basically been attending 2 schools with inappropriate sanitation and concerns in regards to hand washing, and that's a grave concern because it was certainly not addressed appropriately in my eyes, and I imagine other people feel that way.
If I can just be clear, the reinspection has not yet taken place, or has?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Do we know when they're coming in to reinspect?
I don't have a date, no.
I think I heard
Could we
about
call
that.
them?
We've
Yeah,
asked.
We'll call them, can we call them tomorrow?
We've asked that the Board of Health notify Mr. Dones at a minimum when they're going to occur, and certainly our food service director is made aware as well.
Hopefully they do that very soon. And is there any independent inspection that we should be doing to ensure the safety of the facilities?
Well, Mr. Dones has indicated that he can measure the temperature of the water currently
Yeah.
coming out of the,
Okay.
so,
Yeah.
and we'll do what we can to expedite that inspection.
Thank you.
Mr. Vitar, any other requests?
The only other item I have is, again, thank you for getting us on social media on Facebook side. One other area that parents had been asking me about was texting, and I know a few of the PTOs use a free texting service called Remind Me. I know we're using it at Chafee and at Barton. It's my understanding that it's a free service, so perhaps it's something that we could look into. Thank you.
Mrs. Griffin.
I just put some other documentation together in regards to mentor programming and things like that that could possibly put on the next agenda, and for our vision for the district. And I just want to thank Dr. Garso and, again, the two of you ladies for just all the wonderful work that you're doing, I think, and all the teachers as well. I think that everybody is working at trying to do great things, and it's happening. And I know I asked a lot of tough questions, and I really appreciate the work that everybody's doing, and I just want that to be known. And thank you for taking time and patience with me to answer them. So.
Very good, thank you. I have a couple tonight. First of all, I want to start out by congratulating Mr. Wells and Project Coffee for the national recognition. I guess that they'll be presenting at a conference coming up. And after that, I'd like to invite Mr. Wells, maybe some students from Coffee and faculty to come in and just present to the committee what's going on over there. You hear some really good stories coming out of Project Coffee during, I guess, when you guys were working in Oxford last Thursday. I had the day off, or for the city of Worcester, and we had a cold day. And so I made my way around town. I stopped a couple different places. And two places I stopped that talked about how they bring students from Coffee and they work with them. And really, the working with the kids, and that people don't understand that. These are these most horrible kids, that they're lacking some skills. Like one said, yeah, he doesn't have great social skills, but we're working on that. And that's where the great community partnerships come through that many of our local businesses do. So thank you, congratulations to Coffee, and thank you for the local businesses that help support them in their vision of making the students very career ready. Last week I did have the opportunity to attend a 7th and 8th grade orientation. It was wonderful. Anytime that you get such a fine group of students that we have here at the high school together and give them some time to get organized, it's going to be a success. That program, and what drove the program, that it was student-driven. It opened up with a wonderful play. It's, I guess, an act from a play. The students held the tours. Most of the classrooms are going to do. It was incredible student engagements, and it was student to student. It was the 9th, 10th, 11th graders from OHS talking to the 7th and 8th graders, and the parents were like, wow, this is going to be something my kid's going to want to go to. And that it wasn't all the adults talking down. It was that linear across. It was wonderful. So congratulations to them. Principal Tebow and his staff over there put together a great event. And then also had the same thing on the letters and correspondence. If we could really, that communication piece is so important to us as a school committee. Like I said before, we are a part-time board. But with the social media, with the emails, anything just to get the information out to us, it can keep us much more well-informed when we are talking and dealing with issues to our constituents in the community. That's all I have. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry to chime back
No,
in.
go
I do appreciate when we get our updates on Friday, and typically we meet on Monday, and I don't know if it is just me, and this might be something that we put on the agenda to discuss, but I like to have a little bit more time to, do my homework and come to these meetings. I feel like I'm trying to prepare myself, but I'm taking hours away from my sleep, to be quite honest with you, so I can read 50 pages and go through and then put together whatever I need to put together so I have my questions answered. And if we could have some more notification, definitely make sure that this is not just only posted on our district website, but if we look into getting these agendas out to the community somehow through, I don't know if it's letters home or whatever we have to do, but parents should have these agendas in hand so they're aware what the topics of discussion are going to be. And I think the attendance at these meetings would go up dramatically because a lot of people, even though social media is fantastic, they just might not have that outlet in their home. So.
I apologize, but I forgot to mention a couple of things. A couple of parents have been asking me about the school year calendar for next year. Being that it is January, a lot of employers are requiring time off requests. What is the time frame? Is that...
We met on that just this afternoon, and we're going to be working on the calendar in draft form at our leadership meetings a week from next Monday. There's no school next Monday. We meet every other Monday, so we're going to be working on that over the next couple of weeks.
And if you're not prepared to answer, this is fine, but the overwhelming response or question from parents is, are we going to continue to start after Labor Day, because we've done the past 2 years, or do we think that there's a possibility that we might start in August? And
There's that possibility.
there is that possibility, okay. The final thing that I forgot to mention is, we talked about the policy when we did the LICE policy. I would like to, at some point, perhaps after the transportation and committee is finalized, to look at reforming a policy subcommittee of the school committee where because we're finding more often than not, there's a lot of policies that are not in place. And I know that MASC has a sample draft, a sample policy document that we could use to go by. And again, I think that we could look at using their resources more, MASC, for both the policy, but also the governance program that they have. I'd love to have them come in and work with us, especially as we are undergoing all this wonderful transition and change, and we so can do this, Pirate Pride, to continue as the school committee, as a board, to support the objectives of the district. So, thank you.
Sorry. That's fine. Anything else? Okay. At this stage, I will open the floor. Anything from the floor? Shall close the floor. Thank you. And at this stage, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we are adjourned. Thank you. Good night.
First sleep.